Okay. So what we'll do is we'll post this after, so anyone who couldn't join because of the technical issues can watch it this week before Friday. So obviously we are here because of the Lansdowne 2.0 proposal that was made public just last week. And this proposal is going to the Finance and Economic Development Committee on Friday of this week. And we wanted to make sure to have a discussion about it. Before I do that, I want to recognize where we are, the land we sit on. We're on unceded, unsurrendered Anishinaabe Algonquin territory. And of course, Lansdowne has been a huge part of that history for a very, very long time. I know that there is important recognition here on the site itself as it stands. And there's going to need to be consideration for this and anything to change at the site as well. I wanted to make sure as well to introduce the folks on the panel on the staff side. I will let Steve Willis do that and introduce his team that he's got here. On my team, before he jumps in, my team, we've got Jonathan McLeod here, as well as Miles Crowder is here. And I will let Steve jump in for his to introduce his staff team.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks for pulling this together. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Dan Chenier, who is my counterpart, who is the General Manager of Recreation, Culture and Facilities for the City of Ottawa. Isabel Jasmine is the Deputy City Treasurer. Simon Diaco is with our Corporate Real Estate Group and part of Planning Real Estate and Economic Development. And Tara Blasioli is the Project Manager for Lansdowne, has been working closely with me on the project so far. Thanks, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Steve. Also on here are the community association representatives in the area and from FCA. So we've got, I don't know, Alex Cullen, did you want to introduce yourself? If you're able to unmute.
There you go, thank you. So I'm Alex Cullen, President of the Federation of Citizens Associations. We represent some 70 community groups across the City of Ottawa.
And Anthony Caricato.
Hello, I'm Anthony Caricato. I chair the Glebe Community Association Lansdowne Committee, member of the Lansdowne Stakeholder Sounding Board, and the Glebe Community Association representative this evening. And thank you everybody for making the time to be here, and Sean for pulling this together at the last minute.
Thanks so much for being here, Anthony. Alexandra Gruca-McCauley.
Yes, hi, it's Alexandra Grutz-McCauley from Old Ottawa East. I am the Lansdowne Committee Chair for the Old Ottawa East Community Association. And Sean and John and everyone, thank you so much for putting this together.
Absolutely. And then Lauren Cutler.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you for offering me an opportunity to speak tonight. I wasn't expecting to. I'm here. I'm with the FCA and the president of my community association, but I'm here in my private individual capacity as someone who previously had been involved with a lot of the financial analysis of Lansdowne 1.
Thank you, Lauren. And I've just promoted as well. I've asked Oscar to be promoted. That's Sue Neal. Sue, did you want to introduce yourself from Old Ottawa South?
Hi, Sean. Thanks very much. I'm Sue Neal. I'm the Vice President of OSCA, and I'm here on behalf of Old Ottawa South this evening. Thank you very much for organizing this, Sean, and we look forward to more discussions.
Thank you so much. I'll encourage, if panelists would like to turn on your cameras if you're able to. If you'd like to, please do, instead of just my face up here. How the evening's going to go is we're going to pass it over to staff to do a brief presentation on what they released just last week. And then after that, we're going to go to community associations for comment and how they're feeling about the report. And after that, we'll open it up to Q&A to folks here. So there's a Q&A section that you can see at the bottom of your screen. And you can also write in the chat, and my team will be looking at that and making sure that we get to as many questions as possible this evening. I'll just start on my end. This has obviously been kind of tumultuous last few days on this file, and lots of media calling and other concerned residents. We've been getting so many emails on this since it was released last week. I think one of the big pieces here that we really want to focus in on is the public consultation side. I think we need to make sure that that we do not approve anything locking us into a plan that has not had any proper public consultation. And I want to say that off the top. There's a number of things in here, and some of them I think are positive, and some of them need a lot more questioning in my view. And so, you look at the affordable housing calculations, you look at the transportation issues, you look at the debt load, the previous retail strategy and the current retail strategy. All of these things, the 40-story towers, several of them. This is the type of stuff that needs feedback before we move to any type of plan. And so I just want to say that off the top that I'm quite concerned about it. While saying that, I think there are some potential positives that we should get from this, but not without having, again, robust citywide discussion about this entire plan. So with that, I think I'll pass it over to Steve Willis, and he can walk through. Simon, you're on there too if you want to do the slides. Do I need to make you folks co-hosts? Are you already? You're co-hosts. Okay, good. I think we've got you set up. So you can go ahead and start the staff presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor, and thanks for the setup for this. So just for everybody's benefit, the report before Council right now is not a final approval in any sense of the word. It is a checking with Council and seeking some financial authority to spend some more money to gather more information to answer many of the questions people have, to approve some basic parameters for further discussions that would launch a full-blown public consultation and a full-blown land use planning process, which hasn't even begun yet. So I'll walk you through the major steps, and really the last slide concludes with the 4 big parts that actually would have to happen after the end of this term of council and would really be in the hands of the next city council. Next slide, please. So we'll just skip this, please. So last year, in July 2021, City Council voted to direct staff to bring forward detailed plans and cost estimates for the revitalization of Lansdowne, a funding strategy for the city's portion, an assessment of revenue neutrality. In other words, that there had to be revenues coming into the project to cover the costs of the project, an assessment of the financial implications for the city and the term of the partnership agreement. As a result of some of the consultations leading into that report, Council also wanted us to look at significant capital improvements in support of site animation, creating a better and more welcoming outdoor public realm, and developing policies and programs to support increased public use of the park. Next slide, please. Council agreed to move forward with the recommended framework, and this was really in the context that the existing Civic Center, which is over 50 years old, actually almost over 55, getting close to 60, is at the end of its functional usability. We can keep that building going, but our costs to keep it going increase every year. It is the worst energy performer of all of the city's real estate portfolio. It has very high operating costs. We can't even use the building as it was originally designed and intended because of limitations in terms of the structure in the facility, and there are really inadequate facilities for attracting contemporary events. And all that's in last year's report, which is online, which you can go take a look at if you'd like more of those details. So we've been working with OSEG in commercially confidential negotiations to develop a package. We had hoped we would be further along by this point in the process and be able to start the full-blown public consultation process in the context of the planning side, but the negotiations have taken much longer than we expected. We were supposed to report back in Q1 of this year, basically around March or early April, but things have taken longer than that. And Council wanted us to bring a proposal that could make Lansdowne a 365 a year attraction and ensure the sustainability of the partnership over the term and attract 5 million visitors per year. So as I will explain later, everything is dependent on a series of approvals that won't happen this term of council, that will actually happen in the next term of council. Next slide, please. So over the last 9 months, we've been working in those commercially confidential negotiations, and there have been a very cooperative exchange of information, and both sides have been working well together. We have developed very high-level plans for the site, for the sporting facilities, and conceptual plans for the mixed-use development. So the sporting facilities are a much higher level of detail. So the new event center, which is an arena and other uses, and the north side stands, we have much more detailed information on those. But the mixed use development really at this stage is an artist's concept and has not gone through a land use planning process with the rigor that would normally apply. The negotiations have been very complex due to several factors. It's a complex business relationship for the city as it is. Costs have been very difficult in this environment. If anybody is involved in any sort of construction, whether it's a big project that you're working on with your company or whether you're even doing a home renovation, you can appreciate that project costs for all capital projects have gone a little haywire this year with inflation and supply chain issues. So nailing down the project costs has been a very difficult part of the process, and we've taken more time to get some more comfort with that. We've had to simplify the scheme because original concepts brought to us by OSEG would not fit in the affordability mandate that council gave to us, which is that the project had to generate revenues to cover itself. So we've had to simplify the project, and that extended the time as well. So the planning project will start after the council approves this report, and that would involve the launch also of the public consultation process. And it's as is normal on large city projects, before we would engage in a public consultation process, we often do a check-in with council when we're bringing a complex project forward to say, get a check-in with council before we begin the consultation, which is what we're doing right now. Next slide, please. So we've had several years of experience with Lansdowne, and there have been a number of consultations, even outside of this process, to look at the future of Lansdowne and how it can be improved and attract more people. So my colleague Dan Chenier and his team who operate this site have done a number of consultations over the last decade. OSEG has done their own consultations. Councillor Menard met with many of you and developed a very useful report that's been on the councillor's website for several years, talking about where opportunities for improving Lansdowne. And we did get some advice in the discussions with the stakeholder sounding board as well. And there are very common themes. If you read the threads of all of the different consultation elements that have come together, that there are very, very common themes. One is we need to broaden arts and culture on the site and offer a spectrum of events, not just sporting events. We need to have enhanced green space beautification, including additional trees and canopy coverage. Aberdeen Pavilion and Horticulture buildings should be improved so they have basic infrastructure that will support more programming, and whatever we can do to whatever we can do for those buildings to extend the seasonal use of them more months of the year. Improvements to cycling and pedestrian safety and transportation infrastructure, improve pedestrian experience, and a clear delineation between pedestrian and vehicular corridors. Try to have a better relationship with the Rideau Canal in terms of improved connectivity, and that doesn't mean bringing the canal into the site. That's not feasible at this, So we're looking at how do we get a better relationship with the space, and could ultimately, for example, could tour boats or small docks be on the canal at Lansdowne so people could come and buy water to the site or engage with the water from the site. And then animation of Aberdeen Square and inclusion of affordable housing. Next slide, please. So at a high level, this report to council will receive an update on the work undertaken since July to redevelop a more sustainable Lansdowne Park, receive the proposal for OSEG and approve the concept plan in principle. And as you see the additional approvals in principle, you realize that that's just an approval that, okay, this is good enough to keep on talking with people about. Approve the affordable housing targets, approve the financial funding strategy for the reconstruction of the sporting facilities, direct us to commence the rezoning application process, commence citywide public engagement, have some continued negotiations with OSEG to take some of the principles we have and put it in legal language, which also there are elements of that are necessary in order to start the process for the lease or sale of air rights. And all of those agreements have to come back to council for approval. Receive the city's strategic investment plan for the urban park and public realm, and approve the continuation of our project management office and cost sharing agreements with OSEG and the budget we need to do additional work to develop the technical materials for further work on the project. Next slide, please. So as I said, this is the concept plan. You may have seen it in the media. So I'm going to talk to the left and right side drawings, and they're actually oriented differently. So before I begin, let's just make sure everybody understands the orientation of diagrams. So on the left-hand side, the canal is at the bottom of the diagram. So you're bird's eye view looking northwest towards the site. And Simon, you can point the existing south side stands just to give you an orientation. And the other diagram is actually the other way around, where the canal is at the top of the slide. And so the north side stands, sorry, the south side stands are at the top of the slide. And so let's start from the left-hand diagram. So in the end zone of the existing field is where we will build a new event center, which is an arena, concert facility, variety of different types of uses, 5,500 seat facility. That facility will have a green roof to it, not accessible at this stage, although we're being asked to take a look at that again through the more detailed work. The new north side stands, which mimic the design of the south side stands, except it does not have the roof veil element to it, is at that diagram. And as I said, the level of detail of design for those two is higher at this stage. And then notionally shown in behind in the towers, 3 different towers to accommodate 1,200 new residential units, which is 1,200 units is what was required to make the project financially self-sustaining. And that's built on a 2-story podium of retail, and the retail element is larger than what exists today, but that's also creating more opportunity to help the financial sustainability of the partnership as well. In that new podium, it is actually set back further than the existing civic center. So if you were looking on Exhibition Way from Bank Street into the site, you will actually see more of Aberdeen Pavilion, because the wall is actually pulled back from the existing facilities of the civic center and the retail on the site today. And those are the different elements to the new design concept. So if we can go to the next slide, please, Simon. This is to show you from the canal view how, in terms of the protected views of the heritage, Aberdeen Pavilion are maintained and create the green carpet leading up to the Aberdeen, the new event center, which has a green roof. As I said, the event center roof will not be accessible, but the berm will be moved. It's a new berm, and it will still maintain that look from the park side of it. Next slide, please. The sporting facilities, so the new north side stands and event center, will create the conditions that reverse the decline in sporting activities on the site. It will attract more fans to the existing teams, and other cities that have renewed their OHL-sized arenas have seen attendance increases, and particularly you can see the most recent example over in Gatineau, where the Gatineau Arena was replaced and their attendance has gone up. The fan experience will be better. Both arena stadium stands will be more comfortable. They will have improved physical accessibility. The washrooms and food and beverage services will be much better for patrons. The new event center will have considerably better sightlines for hockey games and concerts. The event production experience will be improved. The event center will have proper back of house facilities, including better designed gender balanced change rooms, which the existing facility does not have, preparation rooms for entertainers, and modern telecommunications and broadcast facilities. Next slide, please. Ottawa is missing a medium-sized venue for events, for arts and cultural events. We have the NIC can hold about 2,000 people, but then you have to jump all the way to the Canadian Tire Centre, which is considerably larger. So we need something in the 5,000 seat range, and it'll fill a critical gap in the market for mid-sized events that are just bypassing Ottawa because there isn't a suitable facility. It will help support the city's music strategy. It can supplement the offerings of existing music festivals, and OSE will be able to market the new facility, both the sports side and the cultural side, to bring new events, which will add broader spin off to the local economy and improving the tourism appeal. Next slide, please. The 1,200 units on the site, which is what's been estimated is needed to make the project self-sustaining financially, will give more life to the site on non-event days. It will create an on-site population to help support the retail activities and provide more customers for Bank Street businesses. It will be easy for people to live on the location car-free, since all the attributes of a 15-minute neighborhood will be here on day one. Example, easy to get to, walk to offices if people are still going to offices, take transit, cycle to work, and certainly there's retail here and grocery stores and all the other amenities around the immediate area already. More retail space will allow OSEC to diversify the retail offerings on the site and introduce more experiential experience, and destination-based retail offerings will be possible. And this brings a synergy between larger retailers, smaller retailers, restaurants, so that it becomes self-sustaining as more people find a reason to spend more hours a day on the site. Next slide, please. The city is recommending that the 10% of the units be affordable housing, and that will be a requirement for the development project. That will be 120 units. And the affordable housing on the site is a considerable benefit for the area because at 80% of the average market value citywide, which is much lower than rents currently in the Glebe area, because the Glebe area rents are much higher than the city average. It will help. We've seen a lot of considerable upward pressure on rents. It'll give a more mixed income feel to the community. Next slide, please. So in terms of the air rights, which is also part of raising the the revenues required for the project, that will be a competitive bidding process, a two-stage process overseen by a fairness commissioner like we did last time. And we are asking council to begin the process because it's actually a really lengthy process. The final approval will be in the hands of the next council, who will see the opportunity, what the bids are for it, and whether or not they're willing to accept the bids for the air rights over the retail podium. And it is, again, trying to generate revenue to offset the project costs. And the affordable housing commitments will be a requirement of the air rights lease or sale. Next slide, please. So we've also developed a strategic investment plan for the urban park and public realm, and there's about over 20 different projects that we have available in the report. They have been costed at a high level, and they're in an appendix to the report. And we've developed a program, a 10-year program for investing in all of those projects. And if we can get senior government support through stimulus funding or other projects, we can advance the speed of the implementation on that as well. But otherwise, the city will plan to pay for it itself over the 10 years. Next slide, please. We've also done a bunch of very specific improvements on the urban park and public realm in terms of active transportation and dealing with some of the conflicts of the different uses of the site on active transportation. And again, a number of those projects, all of those projects are listed in the report. And the one of the main elements of this is there is currently an active transportation federal stimulus funding program, and we've applied for several of these projects already to implement them. We would, as part of the next steps of the consultation, we have the land use planning side, the consultations on the sporting facilities, but we also want to have further consultation on the public realm improvements and active transportation to get people's advice on which projects we should prioritize, get which ones we should do in which order, so we can get further input on those. And then as we get to more specific designs for those concepts, we'll be talking to people as well. So next slide, please. So this is the major next steps. So council will consider this report in May of this year and go to FEDCO on Friday and go to council at the end of the month. That will be a check-in point where council will approve whether or not we would continue the process. Council, that would then trigger a great deal of consultation citywide, which was part of the last report's approved plan for consultation. And so we will then be doing refined sports facilities designs, which will have an opportunity for public consultation. We will have the air rights process, which is linked to the land use planning process, and the land use planning process will have consultation on both the facility design and the mixed use development, including the towers above. And then we will be going through and updating all of the legal agreements, and all of those will have to come together, and council will have to approve all four in the next term in order for the project to proceed. So council, I think that's the end of the presentation. I wanted to keep this, give people enough time to provide their comments, and we will be here to help.
Okay, thank you very much for being here, Steve, to go through that. I think we can probably take the presentation down because I'd like to go to community association representatives to speak on this. And so I think I'll start with Anthony Caricato, if you're able to turn your mic on and perhaps speak to what you've seen so far and your thoughts on the proposal.
Can you see and hear me?
We are good. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Thanks again, Steve, for that presentation. I think, following our initial reaction, we've got a lot of questions, as you can see reflected in the Q&A, but also I'm sure the councillors on the call are also receiving numerous questions from their constituents. I'm glad Sean has been able to pull this meeting off for us here in Capital Ward, but this really does merit citywide consultation. Lansdowne Park, as you've articulated so well, is a citywide asset. And in our new official plan, it was designated as one of our special districts, which was just completed recently. It's an important location for all of us that live close by, but it's also vital for those who live across the city, in Orleans, in Navan, in Canada, in Barrhaven. I know a lot of my friends and family who live in all parts of the city enjoy coming down here. But one of the frustrations I hear time and time again is getting to and from Lansdowne. And in our consultations with you and the stakeholder sounding group, Mark Gowdy has admitted time and time again that, the biggest hurdle OSEG has right now is getting people to and from the site. And so that's a big hole that I currently see in the plan that is not reflected, is rapid transit to get people, the new residents, how many end up living there, plus all the new visitors we anticipate coming to the new events. There's a lot of merit to what's being proposed here, but ultimately public land deserves public consultation. And if we want to enhance the vibrancy of Lansdowne Park, which is a goal shared by all of us, I've been leading this committee for 4 years, and I can tell you the passion in our community is strong. We all want to see Lansdowne succeed. We were, disappointed that the first iteration of the redevelopment there has not proved to be successful in terms of the financial returns and the number of visitors, which is why after, I guess, 7 or 8 years, we're redoing this process. And we really want to see it be done right this time. And I think the way we can get there is by consulting with residents. The time is now, as you said, but I'm worried, very worried, when I read the report that this simply isn't just a check-in with council. This is actually approving permission for you and your teams to continue on with the process, with rezoning, with going out to tender for the air rights. We haven't had a community consultation on whether 1,200 units is the right amount for that site. Certainly Lansdowne can accommodate more housing. Certainly we want to see more affordable, but especially deeply affordable housing. Certainly we agree that a new arena would benefit, but there are some that question the location of that arena. It seems from the report that it will take up 50 meters of the urban park that is beloved by many. If we're expecting, that's the size of an Olympic swimming pool that I looked up, or equivalent to the stadium next door. And so we're concerned about losing green space, especially with 1,200 new residents. Where are they going to go out and play? Where are they going to hang out? That park's already extremely well used. So any reduction in the green space is a concern. In the official plan, the new one that's about to come out, special district mentions that it cannot reduce any green space. So for a special district like Lansdowne has been determined, there are just so many questions we have right now. And again, don't take this as a criticism of the plans, but it's a criticism of the process. And we really just want to take a step back and, like you said, check in with council, but also check in with the residents and give those councillors a chance to consult their residents, check in with their constituents and see what they like and what they don't like. I've mentioned a few concerns like the transportation, getting people to and from, the housing. Yes, we can all agree we need more housing in Ottawa. Is this the right form of housing? I'm not convinced. The heritage aspects in the public realm, absolutely. I see no reason why we can't move forward with those aspects of the plan on the city's managed portion of Lansdowne right away. These are things we've talked about with you and with Sean multiple times over the last few years. And obviously we have a ton of questions about the implication for taxpayers. This report is asking to move ahead with $332 million worth of spending based on a plan for 1,200 units. If we discuss and through consultation after it's been approved, decide that maybe 1,200 is a little too many, maybe we go to 800. Well, then who's responsible for the extra money there and the delta in between? And to me, it looks like it's falling on all taxpayers. So could be a costly redo for taxpayers in such a short period of time. If we add this amount plus the amount that was spent just 7 years ago, we're looking at almost $1 billion for this site. So it's very important we get it right. And I want to work with you, and all of our community wants to work with you on getting it right. But we feel like you've had 9 months to negotiate with OSEG behind closed doors, and we've had less than 9 days. And it's just too much for us to take in at this point. And so great, check in with council, move in that direction, but hold off on approving the sale of air rights and moving in that direction. Hold off on the rezoning so we can have a proper discussion about how many housing units can fit on that site, and livable housing units, right? With proper green space and proper transportation. And then discuss the financials too and how we pay for this. And what I see in this plan is great, but it's a little bit of design by spreadsheet. And I worry that we're doing this on the cheap just to fulfill a simple ask by council so that this be tax neutral, even though we're all smart enough to know that isn't the case. We're all paying for this. We will be paying for this for many years to come. And that's okay, because it's a city valuable land, and I think we want to pay for it. And I think that's also another important conversation to have with residents is, should we spend money as a city on this? Maybe residents want to, maybe residents don't. Question is, we haven't had that chat, but right away we're moving ahead with a plan to proceed with an arena, an event center where it is, and maybe that's a good site, maybe not. Again, let's have a conversation with the city about city-owned land, and let's get to some of these very significant questions so that Lansdowne will be successful and Lansdowne will be vibrant, which is something you and I think everybody who's interested in this on the call and across the city care about. And anyways, those are some of my initial thoughts. I do hope that one of the councillors at FEDCO will move a motion to just slow the train down, because it's, again, you've had 9 months, we've had less than 9 days. And I really think this valuable city-owned land in the middle of our community, in the middle of Ottawa, really merits more time and discussion. So if you have anything to do to influence the process, which I think you do, I encourage you to I guess, slow it down. Again, a lot of good positive aspects of this plan, but we really have way too many questions at this point to move forward. Let's take it as a check-in, if you say it is, without proceeding to selling the air rights and redeveloping and rezoning, sorry. And we have this wonderful democratic exercise that is about to take place. Today was the first day candidates could register. In my view, that's free public consultation that the city should take advantage of, and let candidates and let mayoral candidates and councillors discuss these plans and really, check in with their constituents and see if we're on the right path. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't, but giving us one alternative here and saying, this is the plan, you move forward or you don't, is not the way to develop and redevelop, in this case, a valuable city-owned asset that has great importance and a lot of emotional connection and history to so many of us. So with that, I'll let others speak, but thank you again for making your time tonight, and look forward to appearing at FEDCO on Friday and continuing this conversation. And hopefully we'll have lots more time as a community to discuss this, because again, we all want to see it succeed. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Great comments. And at FEDCO, we have 5 minutes, so I'll ask you lots of questions when we're there, because you've got a lot of good things to say about this and you've done a lot of good work on this file. I think I just want to mention something about the chat quickly, because I want to make sure to come back to Anthony's comments on the chat. If you've got specific questions you want answered, please put them in the Q&A. We're going to try to get to them. I want to try to go around the room here and get to as many as we can, but put them in the Q&A. The chat is hard for us to manage. We're copying and pasting, but please, if you put a question in there, maybe move it over to the Q&A. And Anthony's comments, I think, Steve, would be worth responding to, because what he's asking for is essentially one thing, and that is to bring this, to walk back some of the recommendations that say we're approving it. We're approving and moving forward on sale of air rights, even if that stuff comes back to next council as a final, like, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. What it looks like to people is that you're getting baked in on too many of these items. And so I think he's got one big ask here. The community is really echoing this ask. How do we not make this so deliberate at that meeting that it must move forward and it's going to get baked in, and that when you come to next council, they feel so wedded to it because of the process and the $8 million spent that they can't backtrack from it and get that public consultation in. So what do you say to that? How can you help us?
So ultimately, we followed the instructions that council gave us about what to bring forward. But then, the reality is this council only has a couple more months left in its mandate, and the new council will set the rules for what they want to do. And as I said, there are 4 very major moving parts that need to come together, and they need to make 4 different major decisions for this project to happen. And, new council may come in and say, stop, go do things differently. They may give us different instructions. So, at this point in time, the decision council's making is not baked to such an extent that it could not be changed by the next council. And as I said, with the work that we need to do on the public consultation leading into the planning process, which inevitably will shape the project in many different ways, the work that we're going to need to do on the other elements of it, but the project will change between now and the point council starts making a series of decisions. And I appreciate the point Anthony's making, and I guess the language of the report makes it look like this is a final decision, but it's far from that. And it's been confused by some comments that have been made that building permits will be issued later this year. That is technically impossible. It could not happen under any scenario. So I just want to give people, there is, at least a year and a half worth of work at a minimum ahead of us. And, that's when we needed to check in with council to say, is this basically what you said you wanted us to do? So, and we've defined it as enough of a concept that we can actually go and talk to people about it.
Okay, thank you for that reply. And I know we've been working as well on some directions. Certainly one of them, I'm hoping, will be that council slows this down where it's needed so we can have the public consultation that we had committed to in the July 2021 report. That's the other thing we committed to, is that full consultation was supposed to happen before this came back, and it didn't. So that's another piece that council mandated but did not occur. And I know there's reasons for that, but we must admit it did not occur. And so that's a piece that I'm hoping to work with you on at committee and council. I think I'm going to try to get through the comments quickly, and then we're going to get to Q&A. So Alexandra Grusa-McCauley, did you want to go next? And thank you, Anthony, for that presentation.
Yes,
from Old
sure.
East.
Yeah, that would be great, Sean. Unfortunately, I don't think I can start my video, but can you hear me?
I have made you a co-host, so you could try now. Can you do it? There you go.
Oh, there we are. Okay, great. Good. So again, thank you very much. And Steve, thank you. I have had, and a number of us in the Old Ottawa East have had an opportunity to go through the proposal over the course of the weekend. We just received it on Friday. And the proposed approach to Lansdowne 2.0 for the development of an important piece of public land unfortunately raises a host of troubling concerns. And it's not just for local residents, but for all residents of the city. These concerns include the costs associated with the proposed business plan, the acute escalation of stress on an already overburdened transportation infrastructure, and the failure to provide for what will be a sharp increase in demand for public park space. I'll briefly touch, very briefly, on 2 of these concerns. One of the pillars of the 2.0 business plan involves a financing mechanism that the proposal calls property tax uplift. It's a form of financing that more commonly is called tax increment financing. For this redevelopment proposal, the city is proposing to take out hundreds of millions of dollars of new debt, where one of the key contributors to the repayment of this debt is to be property taxes generated by the development. In other words, property taxes that normally would flow for the providing of services such as policing, waste disposal, and park programming for the city's residents, including the approximately 2,400 new residents who would require city services also at Lansdowne, would for decades be used to service the debt of Lansdowne 2.0. In effect, the use of tax increment financing will provide a form of subsidy for OSAG's operations in potential contravention of one of the stated guiding principles for the public-private partnership agreement. Another key concern is that the city's new official plan specifies that in cases where new residential development exceeds 18 units per hectare, there is to be 1 hectare of new parkland provided for every 300 dwelling units. Lansdowne 2.0's proposed development of 1,200 dwelling units would create a need for 4 additional hectares of new parkland at Lansdowne. Yet not only does the Lansdowne proposal not provide for additional parkland, the development of an event center would remove a portion of existing public recreation space through its non-accessible roof under the east berm. We need to press the pause button on the Lansdowne 2.0 proposal so that all of Ottawa's residents who didn't have a chance over the weekend to read the proposal can understand and assess the impacts that the proposal would generate on them. The consequences of this very costly project are too far-reaching and long-term to risk a rushed and possibly poorly thought through decision. So I really join the others in asking to let's have a true, genuine consultation and think through all the various moving pieces here and what would make sense for all of us. And thanks very much, Sean, and everyone else.
Excellent comments, Alexandra. Thank you. Very succinct. I will go to Isabel Jasmine, I think, at this point, because the tax increment financing has been raised. It's a concern I have as well. It's rarely used in the city. And so it was used in Lansdowne 1.0, and it's being proposed to being used again here. Isabel, did you want to touch on tax increment financing and what it means?
So technically, the term tax increment financing does not apply in this situation. Tax increment financing is when you are financing and leveraging increase in valuation in properties to actually secure the bond. What we're saying is that we're going to have increases in the property tax that will be sufficient to cover our debentures, our regular debentures that we would issue at the point in time when those units come up. So there's we're planning in the finance model, we're expecting around 2027 where some of these units would come up, and we wouldn't issue the debt until that period in time. So we're aligning the debt with the property tax increases.
Okay, and so the property, just so everyone understands on the call, the new units that are being proposed to be created, 90% of their taxes would be an accounting exercise, but allocated towards the debt financing of the project, and the other 10% would be citywide services.
And the benefit of debentures and the city debentures is we issue it once for 40 years, and the debt servicing is set. So right now in the report, it shows that we would have 6.5 million estimated in debt servicing. That number, once we've issued that debt, is guaranteed for 40 years. So we know how much we need to carve out. So any future property taxes coming from this site would all go to citywide services. So budgetary increases, the 10% all goes to citywide. It's only that first initial tranche that covers that debt servicing piece.
And
for their initial.
if I can clarify, Councillor, the money coming in from the property taxes and air rights does not go into OSEG's operations. It goes into the capital construction costs of buildings that will continue to be city owned. The event center the city will continue to own that, and Northside Stand. So it goes into actual physical construction. It does not go into operations at all.
Okay.
Yes, I do have a question there though. And that question is, but for OSEG's request to have the North Stands develop a new event center, would we be issuing that debt? But for?
So the answer is, the answer that, as you would expect, is that this is being done to support this capital construction project. And if it wasn't this project, it might come into play at some other point in time with what we would have to do ultimately with the Civic Center and existing Northside Stands, because those facilities are functionally obsolescent and continuing to be further obsolete as the years go on. We're ultimately going to have to spend money on them as well. But the answer to your question is yes. This borrowing instrument is being used for the purpose of this project.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for those answers. I have problems with the approach because you could use it for almost anything in the city and say that it's revenue neutral. And then you'd have no citywide taxes or very limited citywide taxes for things like solid waste services, garbage, snow clearing, that sort of thing. So that we use this extremely rarely in the city. And obviously we did the same type of thing in Lansdowne 1.0, which obviously is a concern because it's future tax revenue that we wouldn't be receiving and would have to be made up by others. Alex Cullen, I see you have your hand up. Did you want to jump in or something to mention? I'd like to
yes, indeed, I would. I don't have my video. I don't know if you can provide that video, my video. It's not necessary to see my pretty face, but
no, it'd be great if you could. I wish everyone would try clicking your video on, Alex, because
I don't have the video icon. I do have the microphone, so I'll just go ahead. So obviously the FCA is very much interested in this mega project. Our concern is due process. This is no small project for the city at $330 million. It is a major asset of the city that we're talking about, a site that contains not only a stadium, an arena, two heritage buildings, and parkland. So when I hear Stephen Willis say, well, there's going to be opportunities later on to reassess, readjust, I just look at the report. And anyone looking at the report can read English. And it says, what's going before FEDCO on Friday? Approve in principle the recommended concept plan. We need public consultation on that recommended concept plan. We haven't had it. It also says, approve the next steps in the redevelopment of the urban park public realm components of Lansdowne Park. We need public consultation on that before any of that gets started. Approve the affordable housing target of 10%. I think we all want to support affordable housing targets, but we want to understand the impact on this city asset. Approve the recommended business model. Already has been pointed out the problems that we've had with Lansdowne 1.0, which has been revised and is being revised yet again. The waterfall principle is not working very well here. And to hear people say, look, the additional taxes are going to pay off the debt. The taxes, they're not paying their fair share of the city services that they consume once this business gets rolling. But the main point that both Anthony said and Alexandra said, this is a large, complex issue and that needs public consultation. Steve Willis said, this council has 2 months left of its mandate to do things. Shouldn't be doing this. It has brought this concept forward. That's a good thing. It should be out for public consultation. And the new council should then decide, are these the buttons that we're going to press to redevelop Lansdowne Park? Or are we going to vary it? Not be so far down the process, as you have said, that there's no room to maneuver. So the FCA is really looking for a broad public consultation. There's a plan here. It has elements that I think the public can talk about. Let's not be afraid of doing that. Let's do that, because I don't think there's a fire. I don't think the north side stands are going to fall down this fall when the Red Blacks are playing the Montreal Alouettes. I don't think the Civic Center is going to fall down when the 67s take their revenge on the Belltown Battalion or whatever. So we have time to do this right. There's no need for these approvals to be made at FEDCO on Friday and at Council a week later. And so we need to take the time, and that is a political decision. Thank you, Sean.
Very good comments. Thank you, Alex. And I mean, it's likely we're going to have a lame duck council as of August 19th. That's when nominations close. Many people are not running again. And so that means if you've got less than 3/4 running again, you're a lame duck council. So it looks that way, that's the way we will be. So as of August 19th, you can't make any spending decisions over $50,000, I believe it is, as a council. So certainly valid point about coming to the end of a term here. I'm going to go, Sunil, I see you there. Are you able to speak, or do you want to?
Yes, I can speak just for a moment, and I can't put my video on either for some reason. I guess I would like to be brief because I think there's a lot of questions and the time's running out already, but I would just like to make the and over again the time for decisions, for information if information is necessary to go to council, but this is not the time for FEDCO or for the council to make decisions on this matter. So I think I'll just leave it at that. And I mean, the point's been made over and over, and I think that's the key point, the key takeaway from these discussions at this point. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Sue. Appreciate those comments. Very similar to what we've heard from everyone else so far. Lauren, I was hoping you could comment on the public housing provisions, what they've inserted into the report. I just want to let me see if I can actually make you, if you're not a panelist,
I'm
here.
a panelist, but I'm, okay, I'll join again as a panelist.
See now. Can you open your video now? And see if you can turn on, if you'd like, Lauren, see if you could turn your video on.
It says you have stopped, the host has stopped my video.
Okay, making you a co-host again, and let's just see. Can you start your video now?
Okay.
There we are. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Unfortunately, you gave me a platform because I had a bit more to talk about than just the housing. But it was going to be,
please go ahead.
It was going to be focused on the financial side of this. If this report had said, this is going to cost taxpayers $350 million, it's coming out of your pockets. If you want to improve the site, this is the cost, period. I probably wouldn't be here tonight. But I got involved in Lansdowne last time around because of the smoke and mirrors around the financing model that ultimately made no sense. And time has shown hasn't worked. All the projections we were told hasn't worked. The first time around, at least we saw the projections. We got detailed financial reports, which we had an opportunity to go through in great detail. We did our own modeling. We disagreed with what the city came up with, but at least there were detailed financial reports. In this package, there is nothing. There is no sense the staff has done anything. There is near the end, it says the Deloitte looked at this, but we don't know what Deloitte looked at, what their models looked like. It said they were conservative on the revenue because they had 5 years of actual revenue to look at. But revenue is only one side of the equation. We have no idea what it looked like on the expense side. We're in a high inflationary period. A lot of the jobs, I think, at the site are minimum wage jobs, and minimum wage is going up year by year. Maybe not as fast as some would like it, but it's still going up. So costs are increasing. We're not seeing the Deloitte report. We're being asked to make a decision, or council is being asked to make a decision in 1 week without even seeing the numbers. Last time, at least they could see them. How they interpreted them was up to them, but this time they're not seeing anything. The report, when it talks specifically about the financing, as others have pointed out, it says approve the recommended business model and financing funding strategy. That includes approval for a debt to take on debt of $333 million. It's not saying to look at it, to study it further. It's asking for approval to do this. In other areas, it talks about approval in principle, but when it comes to the financing, there's no in principle listed there. There's been some discussion about tax incremental financing. One of the basic premises of tax incremental financing, or uplift, whatever you want to call it, is that it is going to create new taxes that wouldn't happen otherwise. Under Lansdowne 1, which had a heavy emphasis on retail, one might be able to argue that the retail that was going in on the site was incremental because it was going to bring tourists into Ottawa. That because of the sports activities, tourists would come into Ottawa and would spend money that they wouldn't otherwise. That somebody who's not going to travel a couple hundred kilometers to go to Winners down Maryvale, but if they were at the site for a game, they might walk into the Winners at Lansdowne. This time around, we're talking housing, 1,200 units. It's not going to be incremental unless someone tries to make a case that 1,200 people are going to move to Ottawa to be near this facility. These 1,200, or not 1,200 people, it's probably about 2,000 people, are going to be living somewhere in Ottawa. So the tax revenue that is generated from whatever living space they live in is not incremental. It's not adding something that wouldn't have been added otherwise. As well, when it comes to tax incremental financing, which was not used the first time around, it was discussed, but at the end of the day, it was decided not to use because there is actually in Ontario, the Tax Incremental Financing Act, which allows for projects to be officially registered as tax incremental financing, and it gives the municipality the opportunity to ask the province for the education portion of the tax as well to go against the project. Given that there's probably going to be few children living on this site, one might be able to make a case that the education portion could be used to service the debt because it's truly incremental. But the city's not asking that because if they were to apply to the province under this act, they would have to provide a detailed financial analysis showing the viability of the project and demonstrating that it's truly incremental. So that's not being done. As others have said, you can't say 90% of this will go to service the debt, so it's not going to cost the rest of us. If that's the case, I would like a refund of 90% of the taxes I pay every year. If only 10% of someone's taxes are required to provide them with the services we get from the city, then the rest of us are overpaying. Going back to the model, it's got a 20% cushion there for cost overruns. I think we've seen recently major city projects have gone well over 20%. The library, the LRT, the underground system we set up for the store runoff. So really the financial model is totally opaque. We're taking the city's word for it. And I would like to just comment briefly on that, having worked in banking. And one of my former colleagues is on this call, Doug McCauley, who used to be in charge of project financing group at Export Development Canada, where I worked. It's a special skill set to be able to do project risk analysis. I would wonder whether city staff has that skill set amongst its employees. And I'm not trying to malign anybody. It's special banking training, finance training. A typical municipal economic development group is more focused on marketing, selling the city as a place to invest, not doing the deep analysis that's required to see if you've actually got a financially viable project. And this will be my last comment on the finances, and then I'll get to the housing.
Please do get to the housing.
On page 73 of the report, well, don't ask a finance person to talk about housing. On page 73 of the report, it says, If the project doesn't work out, i.e. the whole Lansdowne side of things and the waterfall, the money that the city would get from that side to help service the debt, it's only $4 million extra a year that the city will have to pay to service its debt. So buried at the back of the report, it's basically saying, we can't promise this is going to work at all, but hey, it's only $4 million a year. Now getting to the housing. Well, understanding that the city has declared that there are both a climate and a housing emergency, it's interesting to see that the real emergency is we have a sports and entertainment emergency. With respect to the housing, it's talked about it's affordable housing. Normally affordable there's two definitions typically for affordable. One is that someone in the 60th income bracket could afford the housing and not pay over 30% of their income towards shelter costs. So that's probably what you would think of as typical middle-class housing. Deeply affordable is something that Ottawa Community Housing would build. In this case, as has been mentioned, it's been watered down to say affordable is 80% of what the average rate is in the Glebe. The Glebe, which is one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city, except it also says in the report that the cost of the housing is less than 80% until you factor in the property taxes that the people have to pay. And then it will range from 80% to 135% of the average for the city. And there's no breakdown of, is that going to be on 1-bedroom units, 3-bedroom units, how that's going to skew, except the bottom line is, in this case, affordable is being defined as not too much worse than what's already probably the most expensive neighborhood in the city for housing, or one of the most expensive neighborhoods. And what I'm not sure of is I think probably we're talking a 1-bedroom in the Glebe is probably on average $1,800, 2-bedroom, you're probably getting into $2,400 a month. So this is what we're looking at as being affordable. So
Thank you.
those are really all my comments.
No, I appreciate that. And all the financial comments prior to the affordable housing piece were also very relevant and important as well, I think. I wonder, does staff want to respond to this? Lauren, I hope you'll be there Friday, and it's a good reminder. John, if you can, please put in the chat who to contact for the Friday presentations. You can speak to FEDCO for 5 minutes, which is the group that'll be deciding this at the committee level before it goes to council this Friday. So John, if you can just put in there, I think it's Carol Legault and her email address so people can contact to sign up for that 5-minute presentation before Friday. Steve, did you want to make any responses?
Yeah, I'll make a quick response, and Isabel may add to this. So on the average market rent, it's average market rent citywide, not the Glebe. So it is considerably lower than what the Glebe is. And if council wants to go further, the council has other funding mechanisms that from different pools that could supplement what the project has been told to do and make that target even lower. So that is a possibility, and the next council can give us that instruction for sure. It's not precluded by what we've put forward. I'll let Isabel chime in whether she wants to answer any of the other matters.
No, yeah, I just wanted to respond to the affordable housing amount. And then in terms of property tax, I mean, this comes as a package. You don't have the extra 1,200 units without the redevelopment. You don't have redevelopment without the 1,200 units. So this is what makes it affordable, and it's up to council to decide whether or not this is a strategy that they can support. But one can't go without the other. The 1,200 units are dependent on the redevelopment too. So if that doesn't go forward, the 1,200 units don't materialize, and they are actually additional property taxes that would be collected.
Just on it though, Isabel, Lauren had mentioned the report says to approve the I believe it's the debt that would be allocated. I'm just trying to get the exact wording here from that one recommendation, because that sounded a bit concerning.
Yeah, we're not approving debt, no.
Here. No, but just let me go to the exact one that he mentioned, because it says approve the recommended business model and financial funding strategy for the redevelopment of the portions of the Lansdowne Park subject to the LPP as outlined in the report, and establish budget authority for the cost of construction and preliminary works being established with an upset limit of $332.6 million to be financed by a combination of the sale of air rights, debt, and city capital budget. So pretty, it does seem to commit us quite a lot there.
First of all, it's not giving us the authority to spend 330 million. It's allowing us to set up the budget authority to start to spend. And what we're looking for is 8 million to continue the work. The additional amount, the full amount, we would have to go back to council once we have more precise information after the air rights information comes in, and once we go through a much more detailed consultation, all the more detailed designs too that need to be done. All of these are strategies, approaches, and we're asking council to say, do you want us to pursue this further, or are we going down completely a different path than what you were expecting?
Yeah. Okay.
If I were a councillor, I would want to know in writing from OSEG, what is their expectation from this motion, and whether, if this whole motion is approved in its form, and then ultimately council decides not to go ahead with it, whether they'll be considered any sort of breach of contract and the right to sue.
I appreciate that. And I mean, OSEG's talked about starting in November on some of these pieces, which we've heard from staff. That's not possible, but they've said it in the public, and the public has reported it as well, starting in November. And so there's concerns about that. I mean, I do think, why would we go down the road of approving the financial model, the business strategy, without, again, the full consultation? Why would we approve that at this time? It doesn't, to me, it makes little sense. So if we don't need to. But anyway, I do want to move on. Isabel, is there anything you wanted to add? Sorry, go ahead. Okay. So look at, I'm going to go now to some Q&As that we've been getting. And I go to the Q&A section, chat as well, questions. So let me see if I can run through these fairly fast and see if we can get through them. So first one from Neil on the public realm questions. There's $3 million in projects identified. Is this it for placemaking at Lansdowne? That's the initial sum. Like, Steve, if you want to jump in on these and add more, go ahead. I'll try to answer some too. That I believe is
the concept is we're trying to set up a 10-year plan of about $1 million to $2 million a year to go into projects into Lansdowne, and we've identified the initial set of projects, and we'll find more through further consultation. This set of projects that we identified came from those series of consultations that I described earlier, a whole bunch of them over the years, and they're very specific. We've been able to cost them so far, but I expect we'll go further once we get some additional consultation coming in from the process.
It is my understanding that the original years, what has changed? Oh, can you hear me, Steve? Was I cutting out there?
No, sorry, my internet's going wonky, so I'm freezing a little bit. So maybe I apologize, I'll turn my camera off, but it keeps me more stable.
Fair enough. And the question was, the original OSEG plan said that the renovated stadium would last another 30 years. What's changed since then?
The stadium could last an additional 30 years. It's not in a structural risk. It's becoming, as we said in our report last year, functionally obsolete, which means that more and more of it's not being usable, and we can't attract events or sports to the facility in its current form. And that's all in our report from last year in July. And sure, if it's on the city's website, then maybe ask Jonathan to make that available to people too as well, the link when they send the follow-up email as well. Jonathan Terry can help you get that link.
Thank you for that. Another question from Gilbert is there any reason this can't wait until the new council?
So the costs, the inflationary costs of our project are a factor. If ultimately this decision will be made by the new council, we do think we had to design something to consult people on. Now we've done that. We'd like to start the consultation. It will start this summer, but because of the election, it'll have to come to some pause, and it'll resume after the election. So really, this is getting people's feedback through the next couple of months, so the new council knows how people feel about this.
Okay, thank you very much. Question for Bob, from Bob. Is the city confident that 1,200 apartments in 850,000 square feet would constitute good planning when brought before the OLT? And of course, Bob is referencing the previous Ontario Municipal Board decision around the amount of housing on the site. Can you address that?
Yeah, when we haven't started the full land use planning process, so this will have to be tested through the process, and we're well aware of the prior OMB settlement agreement. And what we'll have to make the case that in 10 years roughly, what's changed, and one of the significant changes, we will have a new official plan that sets a 60% intensification target in Ottawa, which didn't exist when that agreement was passed. And we'll also have to look at the land use effects of the development, and 1,200 people living on the site. We have to show what the benefit of that as well.
I think probably 2,400 at least on the site with 1,200 units in all likelihood. So, but I think Bob's point is a good one, because there's no guarantee that the OLT will either not hold up the OMB decision, or not hold up the old OMB decision, or allow some housing, but not what the city has proposed in this plan. I know it's going to go through a full process, but it's a good question, and another reason why, if you went out and got more community buy-in before we got to this stage, these are the types of things that could help, but we're not there. I'm going to say, okay, I'm surprised the green roof from Miranda. I'm surprised the green roof was not automatically required to support weight. It would seem an obvious place to put a raised stage or special outdoor events. Is there a reason other than cost it was not part of the design?
Yeah, I'm actually personally quite disappointed we had to design out public access to the roof. That was something we really wanted to do. Councils said make this project self-contained within the revenues possible, and that was one of the areas we had to cut. Also including some of the veil elements on the north side stands. If council wants to give us different direction, give us a little bit of latitude on that, I'm sure we'd like to bring that back, but it absolutely was and only was a cost-cutting decision.
James asks about people signing up on Friday, and will they be more or less convinced? I'll just encourage you to sign up Friday. It's important to exercise your right to do that. And obviously there's a lot of concern about this. So please do sign up for Friday. I know that this council term has been difficult when it comes to many decisions. It doesn't feel like you're always being listened to, but I think it'll make a difference, especially in this hour where we're heading into a new election, and there's going to be a whole new council there. So please do come on Friday. Okay, some people have been asking about the option of LeBreton Flats for the hockey or the civic center. And others have suggested that this might be a nice pairing if the Senators were ever to move there at the Flats and somewhere that's on LRT, whereas this site is not. So I wonder, Steve, is there other proposals that have come forward here? Is it only OSEG that you're working with, and is it only this site?
So we have an existing partnership agreement with OSEG that provides for an OHL team and a CFL team at this location. We have no mandate from council to explore any other options. Council would have to instruct us to do that.
Okay, thank you. I hope council does look at some different options here. From Carolyn, how can the city say the event space is being built in the end zone when it is clearly encroaching into the park? The staff report says 50 meters to the east, and then you got that, so that's half the length of a football field, and then of course we haven't talked about the width of that. So I don't know what we're talking about, like 5,000 square meters, or how much it is encroaching, Steve, in the existing public open green space.
So part of the space is in the existing end zone space, and the rest goes into the encroachment on the berm on the downside portion of it. Tara did send me, earlier further measurements. Sorry, Councillor, I will get that in a minute. Maybe Tara, you can text me through Teams that information. But it is both. It is an encroachment into the park space, it absolutely is, but it's also using part of the end zone space that's part of the existing leasehold to OSEG as well.
Thank you for that. more discussion about the site. The definition of affordable housing, I believe we went through that before, after this question was asked, so we'll gone through that.
So Councillor, just as a rough measurement, again, we're working with approximates right now. So the total green roof area is 75,000 square feet in the roof area, which is, so the total building is probably about 100,000. And as I said, some of that comes from the existing leasehold in the end zone, and some of it's an intrusion into the park space where the berm currently exists.
And I think having that berm intrusion or the intrusion into the public side of space where it's currently zoned that way, and the Ontario Heritage Trust and everything, the exact dimensions would be helpful there for people to understand how much it is taking up. And another, I guess, nod to get, if it goes forward, on the green roof of that center, so people can actually utilize the space, I think. So thank you for that. So if OSEG is planning on bringing in more experiential, better retail, you know, why are they not doing it now? I think I'll rephrase a bit. What's this meant to be, Steve? Is it all small boutique shops like we were originally promised in the original Lansdowne, like the urban village, or is this going to be more of the box stores that we see vacant a lot on the site, or have lowered rents, or you know, shops that may not be as viable in that area?
So Councillor, we haven't got to that level of discussion with OSEG yet. That's very much part of the upcoming work that we would need to do. We've told OSEG we want a much more higher variety of sizes of storefronts in there, so that different types of uses would be encouraged into the site. So that's work to be done.
Okay, thank you. From Diane, will the bidding process, air right change charges, and future taxes be open to public scrutiny or kept in secrecy? I think this is referring to one of Lauren's comments as well about the documents that are referenced in the report, and then the bidding process and air right charges. So can you answer that, Steve?
So the bidding process is, like all procurement processes, has parts of it that are in confidential elements, but council will have to approve the final bid. So it'll be part of a public process, and we would be providing council information on, you know, other elements of the process, and there's oversight by the fairness monitor in the process. Isabel, I don't know if you have anything to add to that because your camera came on.
Yeah, I want to respond to the level of detail of the financial information. I think it may be compared to a different point in time where you were the first time around. We're very early stages right now, and we still need to get into more detailed negotiations on the exact terms and conditions and assess the benefits to the city versus OSEG. And so that's the phase that still needs to come. This is, again, just a strategy, and a lot of that detailed analysis needs to be done in the next stage.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I can also appreciate why people are saying, if we're just this early, then put it out to discuss it and then come back. If we're so early in the process, right? Let's not move forward with any type of approvals at this time. I appreciate the answer, but I hope we can change things on Friday. If the principle that the property tax from the proposed towers is to go to Lansdowne 2.0 project, will this become the practice across the city? So all taxes can be dedicated to fixing local issues like potholes or other things. Obviously a bit tongue in cheek there, but a fair point. How often do we use this model that's being used here at Lansdowne of the taxes from that local area funding public buildings or public services?
So Isabel can correct me, but if I'm not aware of another use of it in the city. It is not widely used. Isabel, you can correct me.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Looks like the south side stands will be losing 2 sections. What would the total capacity be for the completed outdoor stadium?
I don't believe, Tara can correct me if I don't believe it is losing 2 sections.
Yeah, I think it's staying the same on the south side, which was recently redone. But the north side certainly would be losing some capacity,
Yeah,
correct?
the north side stands is a lower capacity than what is there today. Yeah, that's correct. And that was, again, that was a cost decision as well.
Okay, question about OSEG wanting shovels in the ground in November. Just to confirm, Steve, there's virtually no chance that would happen.
There's more than virtually no chance. I don't know what you'd say beyond virtually. There is no chance that could happen. There are so many approvals in place, it cannot happen. With due respect to my OSEG partners who've been very good to work with and very cooperative, that is not a statement staff endorse.
Okay. Why do we need extensive consultation and design thought for the urban park if we can push ahead with the single fixed idea to spend the $330 million for the partnership?
I think one of the key things on the urban park, and Dan can correct me and Tara, the concept was that we wanted to do some more feasibility work on some of the ideas and show what the designs would actually work like before we invested in them. There are some elements such as some of the infrastructure upgrades in it for electrical that we could go ahead with, particularly with the buildings. And we're going to be looking at programming that into the regular capital budget over the next 10 years. So it's a bit of both. We can move on some quick wins, and we can also be getting more people in the room to talk about how we actually deploy some of those ideas.
Thank you. What would the cost be to add a roof or covered seating to the proposed new north stands? I saw that was taken out, I think. It was there.
It was. We do have a number, Councillor, and if you could perhaps bring the next question, I'll ask Tara if you have it handy to text me, and then I can respond.
Will do. Can you please explain the heritage impacts of the Aberdeen Pavilion horticulture building, and please explain the reaction of Parks Canada on the impacts of the Canal World Heritage Site?
Yeah, so this is outside of the influence area of the World Heritage Site, but it is part of the heritage easement of the Ontario Heritage Trust, who we have had some pre-consultations with. The diagram I showed earlier, there is a main area of protection of the views, and we're not intruding into the main area of the protection of the views. But we do believe when we get into the detailed planning process, we have to look at particularly the mixed-use development in proximity in that one corner, and that's more work we do absolutely need to do. And I apologize, Councillor, just back to the earlier question, we don't have the number handy on the increase for the green roof, but we will get it for councillors.
Okay, very good, thank you. Question from Josh: why are we adding 700 plus new parking spaces for the residential if part of the appeal of these new buildings is that they were made it easy to live car-free?
It's a very good question. I'm not sure. I hope that we will actually get to that when we get to our final approvals. And the councillor and I were talking earlier today about a direction to staff to study about how low we can go with the number of parking spaces. Because for most development projects, parking is actually a cost of the project. It doesn't actually make money for the project. And frankly, I agree that we try to get as many people car-free on the site as we can.
Thank you. Another question about the definition and cost of affordable housing. It is in the report, and what staff have said is that it could be anywhere from 80% of average market rent across the city to over 35%, plus 35% of average market rent across the city. That I believe is defined by, Isabel told me this today, I think it's $1,710 for a 2-bedroom. And so if you go 35% above 1710, it could be that high for a 2-bedroom here. So the affordable housing, I think we need to make clear, is not truly affordable. It's not going to be for folks on low income. It is really going to be just a bit less potentially than what is in the glebe, but not less than what you may see in other neighborhoods in Ottawa. So the affordable housing provision, that 10%, is really not affordable, and so we should probably stop saying that. I even said it at first until I found out about the provisions. Steve, how long is it supposed to be? I mean, and staff's point is, well, you could bring in other funding for it, and the city may fund reductions or other orders of government. Fair enough. But when we say the deal is this at this time, obviously it's a concern. So how long would the 10% exist for?
I don't have that at my fingertips, Councillor, but we do have a defined length of time. I don't know if Isabel remembers this off your memory, but I know we did set for a very length, 50 years, we believe, 40 or 50. Isabel, can you correct me, please?
I don't know either, but that's what I recall. Yes.
Okay,
Don't
thank
know
you.
exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. From Carolyn, the new OP states that Lansdowne Special District must focus on development on existing built areas, avoiding or maintaining the established areas of green space and public space. This proposal that will reduce park space seems contrary to that council direction in the official plan.
You know, we did look at a concept that would come just at a notional level, not at this level of design, that would have a combined building like the existing Civic Center and North Side Stands do today. It was so much more expensive; it was impossible to do. So there are some trade-offs, you know, in a project like this. So we do have to look at this change. As I said before, it would be nice if we could find a way to pay for and make the green roof accessible space for public space. That I think was always what the initial intention was. But you know, again, when we're working within the parameters council set on affordability, that this is why we got to where we got to.
Thank you. The province requires municipalities, from Elizabeth, the province requires municipalities to provide 1 hectare of parkland for 300 new dwelling units when dwelling units on a site are increased. Will the city provide 4 hectares of new parkland in the glebe to compensate for the 1,200 new dwelling units?
So certainly what we'd be looking for is a cash in lieu contribution for parkland on this, and that would be put into a dedicated fund for the acquisition of parkland. Dan, if you want to add to that.
I'll make sure I can, hopefully Dan is, he's a co-host, should be able to speak. Go ahead, Dan, if you can hear us. Let's go ahead and mute there.
So go ahead, Jeff.
There we go. Oh, I'll try one more time. Maybe he might be not able to communicate.
Yeah, Dan may have a connectivity problem. So when we get cash in lieu payments right now, they go into a ward specific fund. So anything in capital ward goes into a capital ward fund, and that's used for parkland investment in the ward. That's the way the system works right now.
Yes, I mean, I think we're trying to get more green space though as part of the new official plan, and the new parkland dedication bylaws is speaking to that as well, right? We're trying to take the green space where we can. So good question by Elizabeth, and fair, I think. From Jason, why should the public trust the same people for this time around that built the last time around when doing the same approach with speaking with developers before the public and then ignoring the things that we were told to be problematic last time? I guess some of that is I'm sympathetic to around the retail, because we were told one thing about the urban village, didn't turn out to be true. We were told one thing about the finances in terms of what the city would recoup. And of course, the city did not recoup those funds. It may have avoided some operational costs, but it did not recoup the funds that we said we were going to recoup. The modal share did come true on the football games, but if anyone's ever been to a 67s game there on the weekend, you can have dead stop there on Bank Street, as we did a few weekends ago. So I think this is a fair comment around, you know, we had a lot of concerns about the first time, warned the city, and a lot of those things came to pass and came true. How can there be trust now with what's being put in front of us? And maybe staff don't want to answer that or can't answer. It's not maybe a staff question, but
ultimately, staff have taken the proposal. We've done our due diligence on the financial aspects. We are listing the issues that we need to document in contractual agreements in the next round. And you know, as we said, there is much that's been accomplished in the last 10 years with what's been built, and we have learned some lessons. And it will have to you know, it'll inform what we're asking council for approval when we go forward, and again inform our agreements for the next round.
I just wanted to add that we've got 7 years, more than that, 8 years of experience under our belt, or OSEG does anyway, in operating this. And a lot of the projections are extremely conservative based on existing current actual results, and just projecting the net new based on new seats or increased attendance, and it's just the net new based on the new facilities. So it's not a wholesale reprojection. It's looking at what we currently to do today, what's net new, and then projecting that out. And the model, the waterfall, we've made significant changes also based on 8 years of experience, knowing that 8% interest was using up all the room in the waterfall. It made absolutely no sense. So that's why we got rid of it. So we made a lot of changes based on the experience that we've had over the last 8 years.
Okay, thank you, Isabel. The next question is, how can this process be put on hold? We've heard this from multiple people here tonight, and certainly I'm interested in not necessarily holding the whole thing, but consulting on it and getting it out there so that we don't advance this from a council that will not be there next time around. That's not going to have the same mayor, not going to have the same council. We need to make sure that we're not locking ourselves in. So, Steve, we got a lot of work to do on that one, I think, for committee and council on some of these recommendations. Bob asks, inquiries to City Hall in the last few days have received the response that all questions about Lansdowne must go to an unidentified single source of information. What is this center and how is it reached? He asks.
Yeah, no, so we have a centralized input, so we collect all comments for the whole project so we can build a database of the questions being asked and answered. That does monitored by our staff. Tara is looking at that every day. But it is a way of us, we do this for all kinds of projects. It's a way of us tracking every inquiry related to a specific project so we can make sure that we have that information on record.
Okay, and what is that email address, just so everybody here has it?
So Tara will put that to Jonathan so we can send that out afterwards as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and can you just put it in the chat too, Tara?
Will do, yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, Anna asks a question, and Anna is the co-chair of the Seniors Watch Old Ottawa South. It is expected that 25% of the population will be seniors who need to age in place. What are you planning to accommodate seniors and allow them to age in place with housing that have wider doorways, accessible bathrooms? Seniors will also require easy access to primary care and supportive services. What will you do to make, for example, your retail space financially attractive to service providers and make Lansdowne an age-friendly spot?
It's an excellent point, and I think that, again, at the concept level we haven't got to those level of details, but certainly new buildings are being built with new building code requirements that make them inherently much more accessible. So any new building has newer standards, and the idea about more services related to professional services and support, I think that's a good point. We'll take back to OSEG. So I'm happy to hear that suggestion.
Okay, and is there going to be any public design process or public competition in this case?
No, but when there's in the air rights, we're going to have different people bidding for the right to build this, and then they will bring their designs to the table for ultimate approval through the planning process. When we get to site plans, that will go through the urban design review process, and again, we'll receive public input through the site plan process. The zoning is intended to set what are the parameters that we're asking people to bid on. So that will be much more generic at first, but as we have a successful bidder, they'll have to go through a full-blown planning review process. And I should add that on the sports facilities, though, we have a higher level of design, and we will be able to get public input on the designs for the sports facilities, because the city will be tendering those out, and we will be taking those comments directly as the city.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anything affecting the orchard or the yard fair in this plan? Not that I've seen.
No, and as a matter of fact, there was some, if I'm referring to the right area, and again, I know Dan's having microphone problems, but there were some suggestions about going back and doing some things in those areas that we weren't able to do last time, but nothing touches, just in case I'm mixing things up, nothing touches Sylvia Holden Park. It's that area is not part of the project at all. So it's just some of the elements of the design of the park that we didn't go as far as we originally planned. We'll be able to add to and supplement. Dan's now there. Dan, you can correct me. You know the site. That part of the site.
I think it works now, and you're right, Steve. There is nothing in that impacts that part of the park or the adjacent Sylvia Holden Park. It is all in other parts. Although there are parts of the areas that we're talking about where we've received public proposals for example, more shade, more seating, and generally improving the nature of that space through some of the programs that Steve talked about earlier.
Thank you, Dan. That's appreciated. Nice to see you. So there's a lot of questions about finances. How can the city actually afford this proposal is a question. We've been adding debt, and for LRT and other projects, how can we afford this is one question. And then the other question is, what is the cost of the liabilities to the city if OSEG walks away? Is that over $330 million? So if you can answer those two questions, that'd be helpful. Is it affordable, and what's the cost if OSEG walks away to the city? And do we have a backup plan if OSEG walks away?
So the report in December 2020 talked about that. There was those three options. What would happen if the OSEG walked away? And there was an assessment done. You could refer to that report. I don't have it top of mind, but at a minimum, it would cost us between $4 and $12 million a year to operate. We would have to take it over. They would walk away from everything they've invested, by the way. So everything, if they walk away, everything that they've committed to date, which is about $160 million, they would walk away from that too. And the city would take back that full operation. In terms of the affordability, that's what the funding strategy is about. It's new funding related specifically to this redevelopment. It's incremental to what we currently have in our tax base. It's also half, and the other half, that's only half of it. The other half is all coming from the waterfall, because we've reprioritized how much we're getting from the net profits from this partnership. And half of the debt servicing is actually coming from external revenues, which is the actual partnership, Lansdowne partnership itself.
Thank you for that. If the partners walked away, if this wasn't approved, would they walk away?
Can't speak for them.
Yeah, we can't speak for them at all on that issue.
Okay. Great, thank you. Why not put the event center closer to LRT? Traffic is already so bad in this area.
Yeah, and as I indicated earlier, we already have a partnership to have an arena with sports teams on this site. That would mean blowing up the partnership, and again, council's given us no mandate to look at that.
Okay, thank you. Why are the three proposed? I know we're just after 9 here, so let me just do a check-in. We had real problems starting this meeting, and that is on our end on the webinar piece. So I apologize for that again. We still got 150 people in the room here. Steve and Isabel, are you okay to go for a few more minutes, get through a few more questions, or do you all have? It's 9 o'clock. I recognize people have families and hard stops, so I just want to check in with you.
Yeah, I'm good to go to about 9:20 and be fine. Try to get a few more done.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. Why are the new 3 proposed high-rise towers so much higher than that of any existing buildings in the Glebe and Old Ottawa South? This is, I mean, I'll start. The only reason why we're looking at that right now, and they're each 40 stories, or more maybe. We don't fully know, but we assume they're in their 40s. The only reason why they're talking 1,200 units is purely because of the financing aspect. That's what's needed to allocate the taxes from those units, as they say, to the project. And this is my fundamental point: is that doesn't change anything for anybody. Those units are not paying into citywide tax, so someone else will have to pay for the other services that the city needs. So whether we take this on as debt with minimal housing here and allocate tax increment financing from other units around the Glebe, or we do it for these 1,200, to me is a wash. It does not make a difference. It is debt to the city. It is just that we're saying these new units that are being created are the ones that are going to create that extra financing assistance. My internet's a bit unstable. Steve, I probably didn't answer that the way you would, so you go ahead.
You know, the three buildings in the concept plan and in the pro forma that we've done, and again, this has not been tested through a land use planning process, are 40, 34, and 29 stories. Yes, they're taller than anything else in the agreement, and the councilor's right. It's driven by the financial model to get 1,200 units, which provides the revenues from both air right sales and the property tax uplift, 90% of the property tax uplift. It is driven by the financial parameters. And as I said, council had directed us to make this project self-contained in terms of its financing. But that's the reason why 1,200 units.
Thank you. If these are 1,200 units that are not affordable, I don't think we want 1,200 units there unless there's actual affordable housing. And even with affordable housing, I want to know how we're going to plan these in. Unfortunately, it's being planned because of the finances, not because of the way the site is laid out. If we did it based on whether the site was laid out with actual input from folks, these would be different. And that's not the way it's been planned. So that's really unfortunate. Another question about the final decision and what is the option for FEDCO on Friday? Approve in principle, which sets off a number of initiatives to start implementing or not. If you just want to approve to talk to people about it, why not just ask for that? That's been repeated over and over tonight, and I really hope we find a solution for that. I think, Steve, you've answered, but I mean, we got to find a solution for what people are saying here, which is a consistent message.
So ultimately, that's a political decision. You know, what we were asked to do is construct a concept and a method for paying for it and bring that back to council with some detailed designs of the sports facilities and what they would look like. That's what we were directed to do. The degree which how far council goes, we recommend that they approve it just in concepts and principles so that we can go out and have the public consultation, which is the next step, and then address all the remaining approvals that would come after that. Council can choose its language in its approval. That's their prerogative.
Yeah, I hope council does the right thing, but it would help having staff support on that, given the feedback we're hearing tonight and that we've been hearing. Robert asks, for the existing development, there are specific legal agreements separate to the OMB one. So the Homewood Group has one as well. Have those all been looked at?
So again, if I can get more information on what you're specifically talking about, I know our legal services team has been looking at those elements as well. So again, that'll be part of the land use planning process as we go forward.
Okay. Fair enough. I expect there'll be appeals, but it's fair that that's the way we're moving. I think that it's fair to have the discussion. I just don't want to see the approvals of 1,200 units without having the full discussion about this. Why are Ottawans being offered only one choice? Council did direct that to negotiate in this way, but it's true. It's just one choice. And I would like to see us bring back more choices for this. And that's what a public consultation would achieve in this regard. Where is the demand for another 100,000 square feet of retail space? There's a massive glut of retail space on Bank Street already, and Lansdowne can't fill its current offering. Did staff want to take a comment, try at that one, or?
Well, I mean, Lansdowne has been filling its space in the last little while. There, you know, it was a very difficult 2 years, but they have actually managed to bring other users in. There's always changeover in the users on the of the retail space. I'm going to defer to OSEG to talk about how they would market it, but certainly in the review we've done with Deloitte, we don't see that as a risk point.
Okay, and is that able to be made public, that Deloitte report? Or is it?
I'll defer to Isabel on that. I do believe what they've been doing is providing advice on the assumptions in the pro forma. So Isabel, you can explain.
Yeah, the work that they've been doing is the due diligence on the projections and then looking at all the financing options and the affordability model. So looking from the city's perspective, the cash flows, the financial risks, doing sensitivity analysis, just pushing all the buttons to make sure that there's no big holes in the projections.
Okay. And is it possible to make that public?
They're finalizing that report. Yeah, we would, it wasn't included with the report, but it is available through the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you. That would be helpful. If you can send it through to me, I can get it out when it's available. What is the anticipated population from the 1,200 unit count? Do we have an evaluation of the current services other than the commercial to support this new population, like spaces for students in our very full schools, or our very limited active recreation facilities like soccer, ball diamonds? How will this impact intensification in the rest of the neighborhood? How will we evaluate the limited social resources like schools, community centers, and active parkland in the glebe?
So as part of the new official plan, the city and its plans over the next 25 years to accommodate about 400,000 new people moving to the city, we have targeted 60% of that growth to be in intensification areas to reduce the rate at which we have to go to outward expansion. So all of the city's master plans, every one of them are all being updated to match that new concept of the new official plan with 60% intensification. The Parks and Rec plan that was just updated, that Dan's team worked on, it accounts for that, and there's a series of other infrastructure and other elements as well. So, and the school board takes our population growth projections and makes their case to the province on school funding based on that as well. So it's part of a broader city-wide issue that as we plan to have more people living in existing built-up areas, those services will ramp up in time to match that.
Okay. Thank you. Has a preliminary study of the shadow cast from the proposed towers been done? I imagine many of the homes in the glebe from Homewood on would be in the shadows.
So the architects did, I asked that question, and when we get into real planning exercise, there will be sunlight and shadow studies that are part of that process. The architects do say, because we're placing these buildings very much in the interior of the site, the shadows are cast over the existing retail area of Lansdowne the vast majority of the time. And so it's a minimal impact, if any at all. And we won't know that until we do more detailed modeling when we have a more specific plan.
Okay, thank you. Still premature to prove 1,200 units, then I would say. Michael Jenkin, the reason for this new proposal is that the first phase of Lansdowne has been a financial failure. In the city's report, there is no detailed analysis on how these proposals will make the site a financial success. And actually, David Reevely got into this as well on Twitter around the retail and around the mistakes that might have been made in the first round and what's actually the problem we're trying to fix. Why is there not an independent assessment of the proposal's financial viability? Why is it just one option being presented? Now, I believe, go ahead, Steve, if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, we've accepted, we received a proposal from OSEG. We've run a due diligence on that process and brought in experts from various areas to look at it. I mean, it is the way the process that council set us up to work with, because we are under contract right now with OSEG. So they would have to bring forward what they would propose to do. Unless council chose to end the contract early. So, really that is a function of that they're our business partner in this site, and that's what they have proposed to do, and we've assessed that.
Okay, thank you for that. I mean, I think Reevely had a good point of, we said we were going to have 5 million visitors there a year. We ended up with 4 million. So what went wrong, right? I mean, what is it that was the issue? And the report's very rosy, but it doesn't talk about the problems that we've been facing, and there are significant problems here. So an important point for Friday. For the Neil says, for the original Lansdowne proposal, what was the annual amount assumed as waterfall payments to the city? Annual amount. I think we were supposed to get 100 and what was it, Isabel, over the lifetime of it?
Yeah, it was about 60 million. But it was not an annual payment. It would have been towards the end of the waterfall. So the way the waterfall was designed is OSEG gets paid back all their equity and interest on equity first, and we would have been paid towards the end. So it was probably like 30 or 35 years out where we actually would have seen those funds in the original pro forma projections. Now we see them right day one. We're proposing that the waterfall change, so as soon as construction's done, we're sharing equally based on the equity contributed.
Thank you. comment here about the event center is probably too small to attract such things as the Briar, which had the area and business very busy and spectators and athletes love location, better than CT Center.
We understand that that still could be accommodated, but we'll confirm that with OSAG because we've asked about a Grey Cup and a Briar. We've asked for both.
Okay. One question: what is the greatest risk to this proposal?
I mean, the greatest risk to this proposal is if we go ahead and proceed that it's going to take longer to pay for than we anticipated because of the incoming revenues. These will always be city-owned assets, so the money going in will be remaining as the city assets, but it would probably be the greatest risk would be to take longer to pay for than we thought. Isabel, is that a fair assumption on your side too?
Yeah, and we assess those risks. And so that was the financial risk section where we said, you know, maximum maybe $4 million off annually out of the 13 million that we need to pay the debt servicing. And that 4 million, if we ended up having to take it on, it would mean a 0.5% increase in our debt servicing for the city. Yeah. So it's much lower than even the 3% that we do.
Thank you. There's a comment here about having purchased a home in the Glebe 50 years ago. And over the interviewing years, they talk about attending lots of consultations, but not feeling like their voices are heard, the developers are winning. Is there any reason why the proposal should be any different, even with a lame duck council, which should be putting off any decision to the new council after the election? I mean, it's political comment and fair comment, I think, in that there needs to be more community voice in these sorts of discussions. And that's exactly what we're talking about here tonight. We've heard loudly and clearly from people that they want time to consider this, to get it right, that this is a rush process, and that they don't feel they're being heard. And a lot of this is repeated time and time again. And this is what I'm tired of at this council level as well, when we see things like the LRT Stage 2 rush and the huge concerns that happen later with LRT Stage 1. These types of decisions, when they're rushed, they don't turn out well. And we have a council now that unfortunately pushes these things through, even though there's opposition and discussion that's wanting to be had. And so I think in this case, this would be another example of that. So I'm going to push very hard on Friday and at council to really make sure that we're taking the time to, again, get this right, consult people, not push this too far, but you need to show up too. You need to be there and don't give up hope, because there's a change coming to this council. There will be a brand new mayor and brand new council next term. But this is the sort of thing that, you know, I don't want them sneaking through at the end of a term when we really need to make sure that we're standing up for public consultation, for a transportation plan, for proper affordable housing, for debate about the units on the site, actual public green space. These are the things that should just not just pass, you know, in 7 days at a committee level. So please do show up and don't give up hope, because we absolutely need to continue pushing, and not for this term, for next term of council as well. I appreciate your comment there, Harriet. Maybe a few, I think we're getting to the end here. Le Breton Flats, we've talked about that. How many days of professional sports is the park actually used for 3 teams based there? Several days a week, as I've seen it. There's a lot of sports that have been added there now with basketball as well. And they're talking about another team that I saw in the report. Yeah, asking why the city's only entertaining this one proposal. Council did give that direction, but I agree there needs to be more discussion about this. Is the berm not full of toxic waste? Yes, it is. The berm is full of toxic waste, and that's going to be cleaned up this time.
It has to be removed. Yes,
part of the report. And Steve and Isabel, I know you have to go at 9:20, and that's totally fine. I'm going to stay and just keep answering where I can with my residents and other people, whoever might be here, and I'm going to try to just get through the questions. So don't feel like you have to stay, because you've been here and you committed to it. And we had to screw up at the beginning, so thank you for attending and answering people's questions. And obviously there'll be a rigorous debate on Friday, and I really want to work with you this week to get to, you know, resolve some of the issues you're hearing from the public here on the proposal. So thank you for partaking in this. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we let you go?
Well, thank everyone for their involvement. I mean, no matter what council says in terms of how far it goes on Friday, unless they say stop entirely, if council either says, approves the report as written, or is or has some different trajectory or whatever it says, if people want to stay involved, we will have a project website up available after this. There'll be a sign-up process. There'll be a way for staying involved in updates on the project, and we'll make sure that we circulate that through the councillor's office when that's up and ready to go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Thank you, Isabel. And thank you to other staff. If you don't want to stay, that's totally fine as well. But I appreciate you answering questions here today. I'm going to stay and keep answering questions. I'm also going to, if you have a question, just raise your hand as well, and I'll allow people to talk going through all this. One question from Leo: given the proposal will pass, something like 15 to 7 or 15 to 9 or something like that, what can Capital Ward get out of this in terms of what we need? Kids who play hockey, those type of facilities, gym, sports, volleyball, basketball, mostly got shut out of schools during COVID. How can we negotiate to get something that serves the needs of youth year-round, indoor recreation space? It's something on my mind about this, Leo, because I want to make sure that we do our best, even though I might be, opposed to moving forward in this way. I'm going to do my best to bring directions about these sorts of things to the committee, and as well as motions to committee and council. So, obviously, this is the type of thing that we hope we can get some staff support on as well, and pass some of those pieces. That's will be my focus, is to pass some practical ideas while still being, quite concerned about the overall nature of this. And doing what we can to, I think, not hold it up, but make sure the public is rightfully consulted. And so some of those pieces certainly take your point about kids sports and community activity within these new spaces that are being created. And Michael asks, why are the sports franchises only committing to 18 years, but it's a 52-year deal? Do we end up with another, baseball stadium? Who knows what name of the baseball stadium? And this is something, a point that OSIG's saying they're going to commit to extending that. The city has said that the deal would be extended again another 12 years further to what they just did in 2020. So an extra extension, and the teams at that time were only extended an extra 10 years. Now I know they are saying they're going to be committed to those sports franchises there. We'll want to make sure that's in writing. That's part of this. If you have a failure here without those sports franchises, you've got a lot of investment that's come into here from the city. So I appreciate the point. June, how much of the park will be lost to the event center? So I think we went through those figures. We're looking at a pretty large chunk from that hill where the event center would come into. And so Stephen mentioned some figures there. I'll get the exact ones to you, June, when we get them. Does Ottawa have a need for more retail overall right now? Yeah. Given the state of things, I think you should talk to the Glebe BIA. I know that they're part of Lansdowne, but they're also on Bank Street. So speaking with the Glebe BIA would be a good idea on this one, because I'm sure some of those merchants and retailers are concerned about what's going to come in right off of Bank Street there and how this affects them. So another good point. Mike says having more people live on site should improve the retail attractions, but the worst aspect of Lansdowne to me is the big accommodation for vehicles is a zero to very limited new parking spots possibility. Yeah, and that's something where we have to talk about. If there's any walkable community in the entire city, it's this one. And a 15-minute neighborhood, a 5-minute neighborhood, really, you can access everything. And so that's the sort of thing that I've been talking to staff with about that type of parking. You add more cars in this area and add more cars, it will fail. It's not going to work. You need different types of transportation solutions here. Cars are not going to solve the problem. Terry says, as I was not given a webinar link, I may have missed the parking solar EV charging items. I apologize. Please define the parking if every condo has one EV. So there is talking about a lot of solar panel coverage, LEED coverage. They're proposing to do LEED silver for the development overall. In terms of EVs, the council is passing new policy around EV charging stations and what might be available in terms of charging access for new parking facilities. We did that as part of the HPDS. Why am I forgetting the acronym now? The High Performance Development Standard. So there is some provisions for those sorts of things, but I think reducing parking on site and, you know, reducing the massing that we were talking about in some of these aspects is something that we need to look at. Michael, if the toxic hill will be creeping 15 meters on the lawn, yes, the toboggan hill they say would stay, but be moved. So be still present on the site, but would be moved. And that toxic hill will be remediated as part of it if it does go forward. With all the development going on, we need to pause. Traffic is already a big problem and most are working from home. I agree that there is a lot of work from home right now and that this requires some deep thought and consultation. Can't the $350 million be better used for healthcare or better policing and LRT financing? Well, I mean, you think about it, and what are the emergencies we've declared this term, right? We declared a climate emergency because there is one. We've declared a housing emergency in Ottawa because there is one. And this doesn't really address, the housing emergency certainly, and climate. I can think of a lot of other retrofits that we can do on buildings. This one is a big energy hog. The current stands and the arena are an energy hog, and so there is a necessity to retrofit this building. But in terms of the way it's proposed right now, it's the whole site that we want to talk about, right? The entire thing needs to be consulted on and not just one aspect move forward. They're saying they would build the event center first. That's what would be built right away. And then second would be the north side stands. Third would be the towers, is the projections that they've said. And so, how do we best spend $330 million of taxpayer dollars? That's a very, very good question. Keenan Weller, being a wise guy, how does anyone control what retailers they get? I mean, assuming the retailer is paying a lease and the lease is some sort of market cost, only the retailer that can afford it can be there. Is there a trick to getting the boutiques that people speak of that need our particular fancy? If they wanted to be there, could they not be there now? Well, the thing is though, Keenan, the way they built the site, they built it for large retailers when they said they were going to be boutique shops, but the retail was built big box stores, suburban type mall, which just has not worked out well. And I think OSEG's acknowledged that, and city staff have acknowledged that beforehand as well. So in terms of the new 100,000 square feet they would be talking about, yeah, we can bring directions that say, look, these need to be smaller, boutique, if you're really going to have that much come into it. They're removing the J block. The J block contains Good Life now, right? Good Life's right in there. And so, in the staff report, they talk about moving Good Life to either on site somewhere like the Horticulture building in a lease-based format, or off site, or accommodating it somewhere on site within, say, OSEG or rental spaces. These are the things that need to be discussed. And yeah, in terms of boutique shops there, Good Life is extremely well used. We need to make sure that is taken care of if anything like this happens. But again, that should be open. That's why we need this consultation. And I hate opining on this stuff to say, oh, if it's gonna happen, because this is the sort of thing that needs to be discussed through a proper process. But yes, to the smaller shops, absolutely. That is what is more needed than the big box stores. Will OSEG's principals and partners be excluded from bidding on air rights as they are in conflict of interest situation? I was going to ask that earlier on tonight, June, and it's something we'll put into the notes. I don't believe they will be. They say it's going to be a competitive bidding process. So I assume that means that they would not be excluded, but we can ask that question as part of Q&A. And by the way, folks, we spent 2 tranches already to city staff. So if you've got questions, email our office, capitalword@ottawa.ca. We'll put them into the questions and get them off to city staff. And I do encourage you to show up on Friday to ask for this to be better considered, to be properly consulted on, and to raise the issues that you've been concerns you've been raising here tonight. I'll keep going. I'm going to keep going through these questions though, and people can leave as they need. Where's the discussion about traffic and parking? Absolutely. There's in the report, there's a small section on it, and they say, oh, it'll be a traffic impact assessment done. Well, we already know Bank is bad. We already know this is a landlocked site with QED, and that the NCC is reticent to just have that open to, say, public transit all the time. They don't want that, and they've talked about opening the space on the QED for more cycling and walking and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of concern there around the transportation. We need to solve that. OSEG knows that too. That has to be solved for. And so if same old on Bank Street isn't going to do it, you need to figure out the transportation with much more, transit, much more walking, much more biking, much more modal share for all events on that street. And the way it works right now, you get congestion there, heavy congestion from a lot of, car use, personal vehicle use. So, but there's no discussion in the report about it. Again, another consultation. Before you go forward with this stuff, figure out the transportation as part of it. Great comment, Don. North side stands will remain, yes. And I thought, well, no, they'd be demolished, excuse me, and then rebuilt. And then the towers would be behind them. The way the north side stands are right now, it's very large stands that are there. They take up a lot of space. And so they're saying the space could be accommodate new north side stands that would stand, there'd be the diagonal angle of them would be much steeper than it is right now, and closer to the viewing plane of the field, with the towers proposed to be in behind them. And the view plane of the Aberdeen Pavilion would actually be opened up a little bit because of how large the current stadium is there. So that's what they're proposing. Is it true that no air rights work will begin based on FEDCO? Well, no, it seems to me that when FEDCO approves this, they're going to be proceeding towards that outcome. Joe, good question. And we want to get clarity on that. And that's what I've been trying to work with staff on, to say, how far are we going to go here with FEDCO and in approving all these pieces, and how much can we say, yeah, we checked in here, thank you for the report back, now go out and consult before anything else happens. That's the goal. Will we be sending out a summary and next steps of this webinar after it ends? Good question, James. So yes, we recorded here tonight. The questions are in the chat. We're going to keep this recording. We're going to post it online, and we will send out our own position statement as well as the recording to everybody afterwards, later this week before Friday. And this reminds me too, I should just check into John. I'm sorry you're here too. You don't have to stay. If any of my team are here, staff in the office, like if you need to go, it's okay. Just please do. And I think I'm the host, so I can just keep on going until the end. So don't feel like you have to stay at all. I'm just going to keep going through questions because there's been, again, zero consultation on this. Why should we believe the community we listen to this time when this has not happened in the past? Yeah, great point. I think I addressed that earlier in the evening. So the current arrangement with OSEG is the current development. Can further development be opened up to competition and then add them to the triple P so that there are new ideas? So the air rights would be a competitive bid process, as I understand it. The stadium and the arena would be bid on competitively as well in terms of who does the actual build. But in terms of the partner on the site, council has mandated that this discussion happen with OSEG, and that is the commitment of City Hall at this point is OSEG as a partner. So that's the way it's set up right now, just to answer the question as clearly as I can. Anyone here have the capacity to answer questions of morality or that out of everyone's realm of experience, expertise? Well, I hope that I've given some, I don't know, there's some mores that are at play here, and I hope that you're seeing that come out here tonight. In their review of the proposed Lansdowne Park 2, what key risks do city staff see? The risks that they've pointed out in the report are the financing risks of this, and they're saying that if the projections don't come to pass, then there is risks to the proposal, and then they're talking about the upscale construction cost risks of all of this as well. They've talked about both of those risks in the report, but the report, I think, was a little bit shy on some of the risks. It was a very positive, rosy report, as it often is with Lansdowne. We see that come forward, and geez, it's been 3 times now this term we've had Lansdowne come to committee and council for some major piece. One of them was, the July 2021 or the November 2021, which gave some money back in part of the project agreement, as well as gave them some more rights on participation rent and extended the deal. Another one was going to be coming to council that was going to give over OSEG the rest of the public site to manage it. And we were upset about that. And we did work with city staff and OSEG, and they did pull that back because we want to see Lansdowne be publicly maintained as well into the future. And so we've been very clear about that, and that proposal did not go forward. And then you've had this proposal. So every time there's a proposal, there's a lot of work involved in this, and you got to think about the city. You know, when you think about affordable housing and how much work we put into that versus, say, climate change versus something like this, where we've had staff on it for months and months, you know, pouring their time and effort into it. I want that poured into priorities in the city that we have declared as, you know, emergencies or areas in the official plan that we say we want to combat. So this is the fundamental thing in the city about what our priorities are. So good question. Who will own the 3 towers? We don't know. That's going to be, depends on who buys the air rights to then build them. They've said that, you know, as the proposal says, 2 would be rental and 1 would be condo ownership, as I understand it. So I'm going to keep going. What would it cost for the city to jettison its agreement with OSEG? Would it be more or less than the cost of this proposal? I've asked for an alternative to say, what is our backup plan here? We've had people come to us, OSEG say, look, this is not financially sustainable. We need changes. Well, how often is that going to happen? And if it continues to happen, what is our backup plan? Is it an independent third party that comes in? Is it a not-for-profit? Is it the city that gets involved? So I've asked city staff to develop some type of motion that would come forward that talks about a plan B so that we're prepared in the event of those types of risks occurring. Has the city agreed that the arena for the 67s should stay at Lansdowne? That is their current plan right now. There's been a lot of people that have been talking about, well, could that move over to the Breton Flats with the Senators? I think that would obviously require a lot more discussion. And I don't know what's happening with the Ottawa Senators either, and who's the ownership group is going to be there in the future, but certainly an open question. This is a citywide facility and should be funded by citywide capital funding, not selling air rights for 40-story towers. I agree, Lynn. The public portion of the site would be sold off in that case. And, you know, for the air rights, this is a public site. It's been in public hands for, you know, a long, long time. And now we're talking about selling off more of it to help fund the renewal of it. But it's not actually helping fund the renewal. It's just city debt. It's just the taxes that we're saying we're going to be allocating it for. The thing is, those people that are moving into these potential towers would live somewhere else anyway. They'd be paying taxes somewhere else anyway. So this is not just an increase of, you're not having 1,200 units move into the city magically just because they're there. There's supply and demand at effect here. So, you know, I really disagree with the way that they're talking about financing this, and I have from the very get-go. Maybe I'll just check in with people. I don't know if this is helpful, me doing this, but there's 82 left here. Can people raise their hands if you just tell me if this is helpful or not? Do you want me to keep going? Because I can stop. I see Reed there. Maybe I'll just ask to unmute. Alexander, did you want to unmute and just tell me how you're feeling and doing?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it's unbelievably helpful. And the problem, of course, is that this is a very, very large, intertwined, complicated, expensive project that, you know, that people are hitting the nail on the head with a lot of their questions, but there has been no consultation. So you're doing a wonderful job in trying to I'm actually amazed at how your brain is still working to answer all of these. You know, I mean, it is what it is, but I don't think anyone wanted to be backed into this position.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I've actually asked, thank you, Alexandra, that's helpful. Maybe I'll stop talking for a bit too and just allow others. I've asked a bunch of other folks if they want to say anything or talk. They just had their hand up. Please do jump in. So, you know, we can talk about strategy for Friday. I think I've talked about that a lot. I really would encourage you to sign up and bring the messages that you've been bringing here tonight, as well as at the council table when it goes. I'm not a member of FEDCO. I don't sit there. On the FEDCO is very much the mayor's committee. He has chairs of committees there, and he has the deputy mayors that sit on FEDCO. So, you know, FEDCO is you know, one of the more powerful committees, finance committee, and certainly then it will rise to council after FEDCO. So in council, all councillors can vote on it, but at FEDCO we can appear, ask questions, and speak to staff and others. So look, I'll just leave it there. And anyone else want to jump in? If you've had hands up, please do. Go ahead, Diane.
Sean, first of all, thank you very much for at least listening to your constituents, which is unlike anybody else in Mayor Watson's club. Some of us have been involved in this for 45 years. I was on the original charrette, and then they put me at a table with all developers and then squashed my opinion totally, and I feel that that is what is continuing on with. I have approached the Ottawa City Auditor General and asked for a full review of the financial implications of all the OSEG arrangements to date and planned for the future. The waterfall has not given us anything and won't give us anything for 30 years. The city has given up a tremendous amount of public space. The city gave up 275 trees along Homewood Avenue and the Sylvia Holden Park. All they did was move the sign around the corner and pretend the Sylvia Holden Park was still there. The fact is, we've promised ourselves a 40% tree canopy, and Lansdowne has not delivered that. Mayor Watson himself promised me that he'd replace every tree taken down on Homewood Avenue, and we haven't had any of those trees replanted. They were mature. Walter Hendelman and I measured them. We were three of us out measuring all those trees, and there were 275. I've got the list of them at home. So I thank you for this consultation, and I hope that we will get that link to FEDCO. I have not seen that posted yet. I'm very concerned about the financials. I'm very concerned about 40-story towers shadowing all of the existing businesses. The bars and restaurants at Lansdowne and the market, the farmers market, depend on sunshine. Who's going to go there in a wind tunnel in the shadows? So thank you for keeping the discussion going. Lansdowne Park should be a park. It should have a big swimming pool so teenagers have a place to swim. It should have soccer fields like it used to. It should have more baseball fields like it used to. Maybe even some public curling rinks like it used to. We don't want to be the puppets of organized sports and the developers. So thank you for opening the conversation and letting us speak.
Thank you very much, Diane. And I'm just about to click send. So the meeting is at 9 a.m. on Friday, 9 a.m. It starts at 9 a.m. It's a special meeting called just for this, because if they didn't make it a special meeting, they would have had to properly table the report further in advance and had it as part of a regular FEDCO meeting, but they made it a special meeting. So they only had 7 days notice or maybe it was 8 days notice. And the meeting is at 9 a.m. on Friday. The email is carol.legault@ottawa.ca to sign up. I put it in the chat as well. So please do that for that FEDCO meeting. It'll be Zoom. So you can go on Zoom. You're not going to be in person there. And you can sign up there and you can, you'll wait your turn through the delegations that have signed up, but please do sign up. Okay. I've got Dr. Caro on here and Reed Smith as well. Reed, I think you had your hand up next. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say how valuable these meetings are, because the real value is people seeing this process and putting a stop to it from occurring again. Like, the reason we're in this place where rural councillors are deciding how an urban city will be determining its future, and a mayor who doesn't listen to the urban residents, is because people just turn a blind eye. And I think, you know, regardless of how these discussions result in motions or future action, I think people seeing this process as it folds out, getting engaged, getting involved, and kind of getting energized that way is so important. So I just want to thank you for this.
Thank you so much, Rita. I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, we need a big change next term of the council. We can't have this type of thing continue. It's not democratic the way it's happening here, and we've seen that on a number of issues this term of council that I am very concerned about. A number of other councillors are concerned about it as well. It's not just me. So I think you know, we're going to see a pretty big change next time around. Dr. Caro, go ahead. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong, but I believe you're there. Is it Denis? Maybe not. Okay. Anyone else want to, please put your hand up if you would like to speak. If there's anyone else that wants to speak, please do raise your hand. Okay. I'm not seeing many others. I think I'll go to 10 o'clock if you want. You can leave if you'd like to, as long as some people have. There's only 71 left. I'm going to just keep going through a few more questions and then I'll end it, okay, at 10 o'clock. Okay. Was there any analysis made on how the historic Bank Street Bridge will withstand all the demolition and vibration from the project, and who is liable for damage to the existing structure? I haven't seen any analysis on that. So that's a good one. We will log this because I haven't seen anything come through on that. Bank Street Bridge is under construction this summer for a new lanes configuration. And so we certainly wouldn't want that to be affected, that heritage bridge to be affected by any of this other construction that might be going on. What are we getting from the waterfall now? Nothing. We are not receiving money back from the waterfall at this time, and we were not projected to really receive anything back from the waterfall. Our deemed equity was fairly small in it. Leaving Algonquin Teaching Circle off the maps was a racist intent. And Jason, thank you for your comment around that, because this is an issue, you know, all through Ottawa and our, you know, Algonquin, Anishinaabe, you know, neighbors and representatives in our area here have pointed this out as well. We certainly need to see that type of input. I haven't seen any of that input on this plan at this time. I've seen something in the proposal to the Finance and Economic Development Committee report from OSIG that mentions it, but nothing of substance, and nothing that talks about the land here in this spot. And it's a sacred spot. It's been a sacred gathering spot. And so I think I appreciate you mentioning that comment. And you know, in terms of the actual maps that are there and the teaching circle indicating it, I think, you know, let's talk offline, because I can potentially help with some of that, at least internally, to put pressure. So please do get in touch with me about that. What is the backup plan if OSEG walks? How can the city commit without contingency planning? Yeah, and that's part of it. I don't think there is a backup plan right now. Now, the city just accepts that there will be a sunk cost, but they haven't put forward a proposal to say, yeah, there might be a not-for-profit that comes in. It's controlled more by the city. That is certainly an issue. I also did raise with city staff today about the need for oversight in terms of finances and how they're being spent, the audits that get rolled up. The Auditor General reports have been incorporated, but you know, I want to see robust public oversight of the finances that are happening here. If the city's making investments. $6 million per year if OSIG pulls out, that could easily be covered by levies that developers and other sites have to pay in lieu. Yep. The majority of information on this whole project is not available. Engineering reports, previous documents, reference documents. Well, there's so much of it too, Terry, and I appreciate that. There's so much information here going back years and years and years. And I was involved, you know, 12 years ago. And I just cannot believe how much has come out of this. This is such a complicated public-private partnership. which, you know, we've seen with the LRT, the failures that can come from P3s. This has been one that has been really difficult, and I think in terms of the finances has not panned out the way that it was sold. And so that's you know, fair point in terms of all the documentation and everything else that comes with this. It takes a lot to learn about this issue, and it's complicated. Yeah, and Michael, I don't know how much Minto would be making up the 1,200 units. I'm not sure if that is who would actually buy the air rights and how much they would make. John Danto, a week ago, community reps were told the 3 towers were going to be about 20 stories. Now you're talking about much higher buildings. I find this indefensible. Absolutely. I just heard today, well, 40 stories. And you know what? It clued me in was, well, 1,200 units. And then Joanne Chianello was talking on the radio about the Icon towers and you know, Dow's Lake and the large towers there, and it's how many units are in there. 350 or some odd. So you're talking 1,200 units. Yeah, you're into the 40 stories of these towers. 40 stories. And so, you know, it's certainly a giant change that they're proposing here with, again, no discussion. So it's important to get involved right now. Am I correct? We have a citywide facility which is funded by the glebe, land being taken. Yes, citywide facility with parkland in this area being taken, and certainly that's one of the areas that is a concern. We're losing our green space in the core. We're losing our green space in many of our core wards. Our tree canopy as well has been felled over and over again, and we can't find a way to protect our trees and our tree canopy. Even we passed a new tree bylaw this year, and reduced the width of what is considered a distinctive tree, but we're still having so many trees taken down and not protected. We don't have the heritage tree designation. There needs to be more on this here and in the suburbs and rural areas. We need to protect our trees. I will move on here. Filling space and what reduced rents to ensure tenants don't leave. That's right. Absolutely. Rents have been reduced, as I understand it, for some of those tenancies in the retail side. Isabel said the waterfall agreement is going to change with this proposal. Can she tell us how it will change and how much the city will get paid annually? If it does get changed, what percentage of revenue from the source will the city receive? So this isn't a staff report. I wonder if we can post the staff report in the chat, because it is part of that. And so the city is supposed to now, the same first level would exist in the waterfall, where the life cycle cost repairs would be put into it. Then the city, yes, John, go ahead.
So the split in the new waterfall is projected to be 377.1 million. That's the city split. I think OSEG gets a bit more. I think the whole waterfall was going to produce about 850 million supposedly. And then the way it works out for the city's finances is that 177 million of that is the actual profit. So that's the final stage. So both OSEG and the city are supposed to get $177 million out of this after all of the repayments for the money and the equity put in. So that's how it works out in their proposal in the city's report. That's what we're looking at, getting 177 million in pure profit out of this.
Okay, thank you, John. That's very helpful. And in the city staff report, you can see the different buckets now and how the waterfall has changed and the reasoning for it in the actual report. And I don't know, John, if there's a link online you could find to post the report so people can kind of see the...
We have a link to the report in the event page for this event on our website. So if you go to seanmenard.ca, actually, I'll just pull up I'll pull up that link.
Amazing.
Actually, I'm here. I've got the link to the report itself. It's a PDF. I'll pop it into the chat right now. There, that's a direct link to the PDF.
So can we push for a more ambitious green? Okay, perfect. This green building goal than LEED silver. It should be net zero at this point. LEED silver is far too easy, especially with the site being as well located as it is. Certainly, that is something that can be pushed for at committee and at council, and absolutely happy to talk with you about that and how we might pursue a more ambitious goal. Is Friday's committee virtual? Yes, it is. Who decided 10% affordable was the correct number? So 10% affordable, again, was purely made up because of the deal on the finances that needed to be struck to finance this proposal from the taxes from the new development. So the city is the one and did it so that they can make the finances appear that this is revenue neutral. This is not revenue neutral. That is not correct. There is debt that'll be paid back here, and that the financing model that they're proposing from the taxes to this is, in my view, it's an accounting method that really shouldn't be done. And as you hear in Ottawa, it's only been done for this in Lansdowne 1.0. There's a reason for that, because if you do this, you're going to bankrupt the city if you keep doing it all over the city, because you'd have no citywide taxes to pay for anything, for any services that are needed. So they came up with the 10% model and used average market rents. And as you heard Lauren Cutler talk about, it's actually not affordable housing. It's actually could be more expensive than average market housing in the rest of the city when you factor in the 35% increase based on the way the taxation is working. So it is a big concern, because that's been sold as part of this project, and we even said it in our invite. And I corrected that on the media twice today at CTV and CBC, corrected that there is no affordable housing being proposed here. How will construction of the residential tower and bank in Riverside, where the Harveys was factor into this? Bank Street is effectively 2 lanes. I can't imagine it being improved by 1,200 additional commuters. Yeah, it's I mean, the towers that are being proposed there on both sides, we want to see a redo of that Bank Street Bridge over the Rideau River, and a complete renewal of Bank Street South is happening in that area, with new bike lanes being added. It'll be slower but efficient traffic, safer traffic, and so we want to see that on the rest of Bank Street. Bank Street needs a full upgrade and renewal as well, all from the Billings Bridge north, in our view. It doesn't work very well as it is laid out right now. Elizabeth Ballard, thanks, Sean. Good session. I'm away next 2 weeks, and we'll catch up after. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for being here if you're still here. They talk about affordable housing. Is there a plan for affordable retail space? Good question. I have not seen a plan for affordable retail space. I do know that there have been deals struck with OSEG and other folks that have, potentially needed some space when they had extra space that they weren't renting out. So that's the possibility to talk to them about that. And it's a good point to raise as part of this in terms of actually affordable retail, affordable retail rentals. Lauren, did you want to jump in?
The current report seems to imply that they're not currently charging market rent for the retail, because it makes reference that with the Lansdowne 2, they hope they can get to market rent. So there's probably a lot of inducements going on right now to keep the tenants that they have, whether they're equally split between the large tenants and the smaller companies, that I wouldn't have a clue.
That is a very good point. Lauren, are you presenting on Friday?
I'm probably working.
Okay. I really.
And this, ties up an entire day because you don't know when you're going to be called on. I
hear you. I can text you or send you a note if you'd like, because I would really love you to be there. If you sign up, now that it's online, you can kind of monitor without having to be in the room. But please, I hope you do sign up, and if you're able to. But if not, I understand, and thank you for being here tonight.
I hate to be a cynic.
Well, after this term,
I suspect the councillors already made up their minds one way or the other.
Yeah, it's unfortunate the way it's gone.
But I don't want to discourage others from presenting.
No, I think people need to go. I think it's important to show up, and we need to, speak about what we want the future to. I think it's important to show up and push on this one. Doug says, to your comment, Sean, about report presenting costs risks to city being presented in a very positive light. Reference on page 16 to OSEG continuing to fund operating deficits. And he says, but in quotation marks, during the construction period, there may be impacts to operations that may require some funding from the city as a partner. Yes, glad you picked up on that. And he says, such costs and staff responses this evening.
And
very glad you picked up on this.
If that's the Doug I think it is, he has a lot more experience in project financing than I do, so I'll try and convince him to speak.
I love Doug, and I hope he does speak, because I know him too, and yeah, he would be a very valuable contributor for sure. Very good comment about that, Doug. Don Byrne, are the towers 20, 30, 40 or more? Yeah, looks like in the 40s with the 1,200 units if there's 3 towers. How can I speak? Oh, Denis, have you been able to speak now? Are you able to speak? Oh, shoot, I had unmuted you, so you're unmuted, and you are a current panelist. So I think I've done what I can on my side, sir. Yes, we can.
Oh, you can?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll be brief because I was listening intently to you and everybody else that was speaking. I'm just very impressed in how involved people are and how much of an issue it is. I'm speaking as a private citizen, and I feel like a lone wolf in the wilderness. And basically, it comes down to the question, for the money that's been asked, over $330 million, surely that could be spent in other ways. And I say that because of my background in healthcare, and I see the tremendous needs. One walks down Bank Street, you see people who are begging on every corner. And I keep saying, this is unreal. This should not be happening in our city. And it just seems to me this is the wrong project. So much more can be done for the common people that are really suffering here. And it's not just now. I'm convinced times are going to get much more difficult in the next 2 years, economically, socially, and what we see going on internationally, because that will affect us in different ways. And I'm saying, why are we so focused on this one project? And that's one of the things that bothers me. The other thing is, I'm not sure if the First Nations have even been consulted on this, and why shouldn't they be? We're always, saying how grateful we are that we're on their land, unceded land, and that at the very minimum, we should be saying, okay, you're an important part of our country and our city. What do you think? And, what's their perspective? So, the other people who spoke tonight were very eloquent, and I'm not going to, and I wrote side comments that I really agree with what they said. They certainly are closer to the facts and to the, have obviously been working in this area. As I say, I'm just a common citizen with a long background in healthcare. So, people matter, and this project has to reflect that, I would think. And I can't thank you enough for all the work you've done to bring this all together.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I mean, really, it was just a hastily called meeting because of what's been happening. So I appreciate you being here, and those are great comments. I also did bring in Carolyn and Doran. So Carolyn, did you want to, I think you can unmute now.
Yeah, thank
Oh,
you,
yeah.
Sean. It's late, so I'm not going to take much time at all. It's been a great discussion, and I can't thank you enough for convening this discussion. I think two takeaways. Number one, so many issues, so many questions raised here tonight that really merit a lot more due diligence, a lot more thought. That's number one. The second thing, I heard Stephen Willis, who heads the planning department, twice, maybe three times tonight, saying in the main, what they're looking for is approval from FEDCO to proceed to ask people what they think. If he's serious and that's what he really wants, then he should ask for that and no more. He should just be asking for that. And we totally agree with him. The GCA totally agrees with him on that front. He should just be asking city staff for that, i.e. to proceed with meaningful public consultation before they commit anything more, before they send us down a path, before they commit us to anything else. Ask people what they want, what they think of this proposal, full stop. That's all. That to me, those are the two key takeaways from tonight. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for doing this, and you must be exhausted and all of your staff on this issue. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Carolyn. That is a really good point. And, and there's also staff from on high too, right? Like city manager staff and those folks that have been involved in this. And of course, the mayor's office has been involved in it. And so, Steve has been good to work with. I'm hoping we can come up with something that doesn't push this as far down the road as is currently written, and that we can get to a better place that truly does have the next council deciding without being locked in. So really appreciate your comments. Doran, did you want to jump in?
Hey, quickly. So first of all, thanks again for organizing this, Sean. As somebody who was there alongside you like 12 years ago when this first came around, it is eerie to see how similar the whole process is. Here we have a very well-funded private developer in the city who just happens to get the ear of the important project people at the city, and then they can sort of have these preliminary consultations and negotiations, but they're shielded by commercial security, and then the consultation for the public sort of comes after that first, let's call it phase 0 is done, and then it does feel like you're kind of being railroaded into it. Having said all that, it is still important, regardless, to be involved. And I sent an email, and I will, even though I'm working, I will try to sort of listen to the Zoom meeting and see if I can say something. And I think anybody who's at this meeting, I urge you to do the same thing. Whether we think that people have made up their minds or not, it's important that they hear from us that we won't take that for granted, and we won't just let it happen. And the other thing that I remember from doing this a dozen years ago was, I think at that time the headline number was $300 million, but then once you actually did the math on the actual debt servicing costs for the city, the total amount that the city was on the hook for was actually $480 million. So sadly, when we look at those numbers, I would say we should probably be a little more cynical, because you kind of have to work out how much it works over the lifetime of the project. And it's sad that I wish that we would have been wrong 12 years ago and that the promises that were made had come true. But it's funny to see them coming back with kind of the same game plan and the same sort of promises yet again. Anyway, the best thing we can do is to be involved. So thanks again for providing us a forum.
Doran, thank you so much. And so nice to hear your voice. And, we organized a lot together back at Carleton, and I just really appreciate you being here and all you've done. And I think you might work with my partner, Johanna, as well now. But in any event, your comment about the debt servicing cost is bang on. We actually didn't talk about that tonight, but let me give you the numbers. So the debt that would be taken out for this, so it's a $332 million project, but the city wouldn't take out all that debt. There's still some other parts that can be paid in different ways. They would take out a $239 million debt, $239 million. And then the debt servicing cost, as I understand it, would be $273.9 million. top of that. That's the 40-year payment threshold. So huge amounts of costs when you take it into debt servicing. Now the city will say, well, it's paid back by the property taxes and it's paid back by ticket revenues, ticket surcharges, and paid back by the sale of the air rights, some of the sale of the air rights. Well, I guess the sale of the air rights would help with the initial debt, reducing the initial debt. So, but that is a great point about the debt servicing costs. And it's, yeah, I did find it in the report. And there's a lot in there. I do hope people do speak Friday. And Dorn, yeah, you're an inspiration. I appreciate you being here and misorganizing with you. So I'm glad you're here. Anyway, I wanted to thank everybody for sticking it out. 47 of us left, and this was a good session, even though it's kind of a bit of a depressing time to see another one of these kind of reports come forward on Lansdowne. It just seems to never end with the city and Lansdowne because we got into this deal in the first place. Anyway, thank you so much for being here, and let's keep organizing and keep positive about what we can achieve, and not just this time around, but next term as well. So hopefully see you all on Friday, and before that we'll send out another missive from our email address with this attached, and some of our positioning on this as well. Okay, everyone, take care and be well, and we'll see you hopefully on Friday. Take care.